Hi, everyone. This is Sean, your host of the LVX Files. And with me today, I have the founder of Weird Moon Rising podcast, Wade Odinson, a good friend of mine. So, Wade, say hello.
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 I, that's thank you for that well-researched introduction.
Absolutely.
Uh,
That was weeks of research on my
weeks,
part. Yeah.
weeks.
Yep.
Yeah. Weird Moon Rising, pretty cool.
Yeah.
How you doing today, man?
I'm good. How are you?
It's.
I'm lying. I'm tired. I'm tired. I'm so tired. I'm so tired.
Isn't
I,
it? Aren't these like manufactured intros so fun? Like
yeah.
everybody knows that we've talked beforehand,
Yeah.
but we're doing it anyway because
Wait,
what the hell?
we've met? What? What's going on? No, I'm tired. I've been working hard. The past 2 days have been really, really busy, and I did not sleep at all well last night. I ended up going to bed, I think, at 2, and the last time I looked at the clock was like 5:30 in the morning.
Ugh.
And then I slept till 9:30. So yeah, no, I'm not good. I'm
Yeah,
good. I mean, it's whatever. You know what? I'm not good because I'm out of alcohol, actually.
well, I got
I know. I saw that. I saw your beer, and I'm like, great.
Well, you're just gonna. This is just go juice for me.
Yeah,
I'm from Wisconsin,
I have
so
one.
like I'm basically immune to alcohol at this point.
You're from alcohol, so or you're from alcohol. You're from Wisconsin, so that would make you my bottom.
That's correct.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
You're in Ontario, right?
Yeah, Thunder Bay. So like
Okay.
just like that's just like a 4 hour drive north of Duluth.
Yeah, I've been to Thunder Bay.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
sorry.
I've spent a lot of time in Canada actually. I love it
Yeah,
up there.
yeah, it's great.
The only places in Canada I haven't really been is I haven't been um like much of Western Canada,
Right.
but I really want to. I really want to go to Calgary.
Okay. I've never been west of the Ontario Manitoba border. Like I've been to more places in the States than I have
Hmm.
in Canada. That was mostly like first traveling with my father in the summers when I was out of school. But then I moved to Texas for work back in 2008, and I had to travel around a lot. So yeah, so I've seen a lot more of the States than I have of Canada, even.
Hmm.
Yeah. Because
Yeah,
I've only ever been in like Canada wise, I've only ever been in Ontario and Quebec, but those are two really, really large provinces. So that
yes.
basically makes up like half of Canada. So
Right. Oh, certainly population wise at least.
yeah.
Yeah, I was in last time I was in Ottawa. Uh I was in Ottawa and I was like, I'm like Montreal's right there.
Mhm.
And so we just took a day trip just so I could go to Montreal and eat all the good Quebecois
Oh,
food.
Montreal's fantastic. When I lived in Ottawa, because it's only like a 2 hour drive. And
Yeah.
so we used to go to Montreal quite a bit. And company that I worked for, they were headquartered in Montreal, so have to go there. Those are the best work trips, are always the best. Like um, I've only ever been to New York City on work trips, and everyone's like, "Oh, that's unfortunate because you don't get to see anything." I'm like, "No, there's plenty of time to see things." But the
And it's
thing
paid
is
for by
that,
the company.
well, I was just gonna say the thing is that limos and hotels
Right.
and food and alcohol and not a penny of mine spent. You know what I
Right.
mean?
That's
So
awesome.
yeah. And this company that I work for put us up in this amazing the company that was headquartered in Montreal, this amazing boutique hotel, 5 star, amazing. Oh, just luxury. Like, yeah.
Bougie as shit, huh?
Oh, totally, completely. It was one of those hotels where like the hotel bar is populated by all the like business people after work
Yeah.
and schmoozing. And yeah, very chic, very nice. And again, not a penny of mine spent, so fine with me.
I used to work for like a super high end like boutique menswear company. We were like a reseller.
Okay.
So we would buy last season stuff in bulk at a discount, and then
Right.
we would sell it on the internet, right?
Right.
And there was this one year where um they wanted us, Brioni wanted to bring us out to Italy.
Oh,
And so it was like, fuck, I'm going to Italy on the company's dime. Fuck yeah, let's do
yeah.
that.
Yeah. I
Oh
know.
my God, the seafood. Oh,
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I like I like working for myself. I like being my own boss. It has its obvious perks.
right.
Um, Glamorous business trips are not one of them anymore.
No, no. But we're getting old. So like we're past that stage, you know?
Are we?
I think so.
Really?
I feel old.
Not me. Give me the glamour, baby. Give me the glamour. Oof. As I flick my non-existent hair. Yeah. Anyways, enough about that and our glamorous luxury pasts as I sit in my basement here.
Yeah, well, it's a nice basement though.
Yeah, this is my ritual room. This is where I
Yep.
make all of my products, and I have like this is the only room in the house that has a fireplace. So I have like a little like sitting area here next to the fireplace. My desk. Well, this desk originally, my father made it for me when I was working on my grimoire. Like I do like illuminating manuscripts,
Oh, I love
like
illuminating.
medieval manuscripts.
Yeah, that's so
Um,
cool.
yeah, so I wanted like a workspace just for that, but but make it nice, not just like some crappy, just utilitarian table. So my father made me a really nice desk, and that turned into my like working altar, like where I do my tarot readings and I make all my products and whatnot. So yeah, this little corner, I just like a little sitting area. When I like do my like read my magic books and do my studying and whatnot, I can do it down here and be all cozy by the fire, and which is nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it
Sounds like
works.
a heavenly place.
Yeah, and it's a good size room too. It's pretty big for a ritual room, so it does the trick. So, yep. Anyways, that's enough about me. No one's here to listen to me talk about my life because I'm not interesting or anything. I am interesting. I'm pretty amazing actually.
I think you're interesting.
Oh, I'm incredibly interesting. I'm so amazing. It just oozes off me. But
Like syphilis.
like syphilis, yeah. It oozes off me like syphilis, but I'm like herpes. I never really go away. So cheers, everyone.
Slancha.
Yeah. So, but yeah, no, everyone knows about me. So let's stop talking about me and we're gonna talk about you. So as all of my listeners and viewers know, I like to learn as much about the people that I'm talking to as possible. And so I like to go right back to the beginning,
Sure.
like that that one moment, or like those series of moments that kind of set you on your magical slash spiritual path. And I always like to start there and then you know um drag you through your life up until like half an hour ago.
I've been dragged enough in my life. Thank you. Um, I don't know. It's weird.
Haha.
That's yeah. Um,
WYRP.
yeah, well, yes, always. Everything
Yeah.
is. Because like I was raised Irish Catholic, like strict Irish Catholic. Like you probably can't see it on this camera, maybe. but I
No.
still have scars on my knuckles from
Oh, did you
the
go to Catholic
rulers.
school?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. My
Yeah.
parents went to Catholic school. My mother, she was really adamant when she had us kids that she was like, they're not going through Catholic school. We went to church a bit when I was a kid, but not that much. And that didn't really last. My parents were pretty big on letting us kind of choose our own path, as we became adults. So I didn't get that strict like Catholic school upbringing, church every Sunday religiously or whatnot. So yeah,
I I was a fucking hellraiser as a kid.
I
I
don't believe
was
that for a second.
Yeah, I'm wearing a fucking like a shitty torn up bad religion shirt right now. Um I was kicked out of Catholic school by the end of first grade
Wow.
because I was not having it. Like, you're gonna hit me with a ruler, I'm gonna throw a chair at your ass.
Okay, Alistair Crowley.
Yeah, well, I just wasn't like, it was too fucking strict, you know?
Yeah.
And so I got pulled out and they put me in public school, and public school actually did me a world of good. Um, and I think that I was raised mostly by my grandparents.
Okay.
And I think that while my grandmother objected, my grandfather realized that the strict Catholic living was not going to be good for me. And so they kind of eased off on it. They were like, let's just let Wade be Wade. um, and that was good ultimately. It was like second grade. I found this tiny little book, like a little folio, but it was like big and pictures, like a second grader book, right?
Right.
But it had all this stuff in it about like cryptids and astral projection and mythology, and I was obsessed with this book.
Do you remember what it was called?
I don't. I
Okay.
don't.
Where'd you
If
get
I
it?
my classroom, so because I was kicked out of my previous school, public school decided that I should be in a special program for emotionally disturbed children.
It fits.
Yeah, yeah. They were not wrong. It
Yeah.
was it was for the best. But one of the things, they had all these special programs and stuff, and so you could earn reading time. So
Okay.
we had a little library in the classroom, and so I wanted nothing more than to just spend my time reading. Because even by second or third grade, I was a voracious reader.
So you had like a library in your classroom,
Yeah,
like you guys were completely isolated from like the rest of the school
pretty
in a way?
much. Yeah, yeah, pretty
Okay.
much.
Huh.
We even Let me tell you how nuts this classroom was. We even had this is gonna sound like child abuse, and it was. We had a like a vault room in the classroom for kids who were acting way out, and the teachers would throw them in there and then close the door, and it did not open from the inside.
Oh my God.
Hey, it's the 80s, baby.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But I because I was such a voracious reader, that was my motivation. And luckily my teacher recognized this. So basically the rules all went out the window. As soon as I was done with my homework, she just let me go and hang out in the library. That was
Right.
it. I think I read probably every book on that shelf. I was in that classroom until fifth grade. And I think I read every book on that shelf by the end of third grade.
Okay.
I mean, I had finished the Lord of the Rings by the time I had finished third grade.
Wow.
Which, looking back on it, I don't know how I slogged through all that fucking
Yeah.
poetry, those Elven songs and shit. but yeah, I like just because of that, I just because of that one little book, I had all of this interest in all sorts of occulty nonsense.
Mm,
Um, and was really into like horror films and stuff as a fourth grader.
yeah.
Um,
My parents did not filter my television or movies, and I loved, like at that age, I loved, and I still do, loved horror movies, but they would give me the worst nightmares, and I would wake up screaming like blood curdling screams. But they never were like, oh, you know what, we got to cut that out of his, like he can't watch these movies. And it was wasn't that, it was, I don't know, it was just like they treated it as normal. Okay, he had a nightmare. He woke up screaming. We jump out of bed, tell him it's okay, and that's fine. And next weekend he'll watch more horror movies. Like, but it was the 80s. Like,
yeah, right.
you know, we were raised different.
Definitely. Definitely. And I don't know if it's for the better, honestly.
No.
I, yeah, I never had that. Like I never had nightmares. I would like, I would watch like, Friday the 13th part 2, and then I would just go straight to bed and sleep the sleep of angels,
Yeah.
and it would be fine.
No, the
Um
nightmares were the best part though. The nightmares were the best part because like I'm experiencing something scary so much. Like it's scary enough watching the movie as a kid, but to be in a nightmare scenario where you think you're in it, that's the best part. I mean, I love having nightmares. Even now, I love having really bad dreams, really freaky ass dreams.
See, I
Uh,
don't dream. I never
ever?
remember my
Like you
dreams.
never ever
Never.
remember your dreams.
Um, if
Wow.
I do, on the rare occasions that I do, um, they almost always come true.
Okay.
So I if I wake up in the morning and I remember a dream, um, that's usually a bad sign for
Yeah.
me.
I have dreams that are so vivid. Like I'll wake up and I'll sit there for a minute being like, that was a dream, right? Like that this isn't a memory. Like that was a dream, they're so vivid that it can take me a while to really
Remember who you are.
finally be able to separate and be like, no, 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 this was just a dream. Yeah.
I wish I had that kind of active dream life, but I just don't.
Interesting. I was talking to my friend Frater RC. He has a podcast, the Magic Without Fears podcast, and he was the first person I interviewed for my podcast because I had recently reconsecrated all of my tools, and he had asked me like if I ever slept with them,
Hmm.
and and I've seen it recommended, but I said no. It goes, you should try it. I'm like, yeah. I mean, I don't know why I never
What's
bothered.
the worst that could happen?
Well, what's the worst that can happen? But and like I said, like it's a recommendation, and I know it's a recommendation, but I never really thought of it like, oh, I should try this. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna give this a try. And I kind of expect, because my dreams are so vivid, I kind of expect it to have even more vivid dreams, because
Right.
I'm either going to wake up in the morning feeling like and I mean, even if we don't remember our dreams, we've dreamt.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
I realize that, but I'm either going to wake up in the morning feeling like I didn't have any dreams, or waking up remembering my dreams very vividly. Like there's no halfway point with my dreams. So I did a course, one tool for 4 nights, and then I decided I would do it again and then do it a third time. And like tonight will be the last tool of the third time that I'm gonna stop.
Oh, you're in this. You're in this process now.
Yeah. And I was saying to him, I'm like, what's strange about it is that I know it's not that I'm waking up not feeling like I didn't dream, and I'm not waking up remembering these vivid dreams, I'm waking up knowing I've dreamt, but not knowing what I've dreamt about, but feeling that I was busy.
Interesting.
Yeah. And he found that really interesting. And last night I was saying to you, like, I had a really hard time getting to sleep. Like, I went to
Right.
bed at 2 and I tossed and turned till sometime after 5:30 in the morning. And I was doing my water cup, sleeping with my water cup last night. And I realized at around 5:30 that the last time, the first time I slept with the water cup, I was fine. The second time I slept with it, I had a really hard time falling asleep. Last night, I shouldn't say I tossed and turned. I did sleep briefly. I woke up with that same feeling of, I know I dreamt, I just don't know what I dreamt of. And now I'm tossing and turning, tossing and turning. And it finally dawned on me, I'm like, you know what? I wonder if it's the water cup, because this happened to me the last time I slept with the water cup. So I got up and I put it on my altar, laid down, and boom.
Out like a light.
No, no,
No?
no. I laid down, and the second my head hit the pillow, what I was dreaming about that I couldn't remember hit me,
Ah,
and then I was out like a light.
okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's cool.
yeah. It's strange. It's just, I expected, because like I said, my dreams are really vivid, and when I astral travel, like photo editing software, how you can play with like the saturation,
Yeah.
and you can kind of make the colors like vivid and overly saturated. That's kind of what I see when I astral travel. So I was expecting something, more visually significant that I would remember. So the fact that I don't remember anything but know that something was going on, I just find strange, because that's not normal for me.
That's yeah. I mean, you have a process, right? And so you have an expectation, and then you have and a way that you go about your sleep business.
Yeah,
And then you threw an unknown element into it, and it
yeah.
fucked everything up.
Which is fine. It's great.
Yeah.
It's like, I say this a lot, almost, it's almost cliche. I say this so much, like, you don't know unless you try,
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's like, well, what's the worst that can happen? Well, something really bad could happen, but I'm not going to know unless I try. So I'm going to give it a try. And I gave it a try, and the results were interesting. But anyways, back to you, little Hellraiser with your books.
Yeah. I don't know. Um, I was really into baseball as a kid. My grandfather was AAA pitcher for the
Okay.
Chicago Cubs in his youth.
Oh, wow.
And so he loved baseball,
Right.
and he taught me he taught me the nastiest sinker. Um, I it's a thing of brutality. Um,
So I have no idea what you're talking
that's
about.
fine.
Like,
That's
you
fine.
just you just went from English to Greek. Uh, so I don't know, like a sinker?
Okay. Yeah, a sinker. Okay, so
Okay.
picture the trajectory of a baseball as it moves. It goes like this.
Mhm.
A sinker does this.
Okay.
It travels forward, and then the spin eventually accumulates, and the air moving against it
Right.
causes it to keep spinning. So it descends at a rapid rate.
Okay. Okay.
It is hell. It is hell for a batter to hit that,
Right.
because you never know. You never, because on first glance it just looks like a slow fastball. Um, but yeah, like, so baseball was a big part of my growing up. And then eventually, I think it was like and I only mention this because ancestor work is a big part of my practice.
Right.
And my, like a ton of it is reverence for my grandparents.
Mhm.
Um, it's why I'm a chef. It's kind of everything for me.
Right.
But I don't know. And I think it was about sixth or seventh grade when I went to my grandparents. I was like, I'm not really into this whole Catholicism thing. I don't really like this. And my grandmother, being the more stern one, was pretty mad about that. But my grandfather was like, I don't know, do what you got to do, right?
Yeah.
Because he was a very practical dude. I mean, this is
Yeah.
a Pearl Harbor survivor we're talking
Yeah.
about
Yeah. Yeah.
here.
He's like, who cares? He likes baseball. That's all that really matters.
Well, I don't know. I my grandfather was, despite being an actual, like, despite being part of the greatest generation, um, like, he was a pretty progressive dude. He didn't really, he let me figure out who the hell I wanted to be. Which, bless.
Yeah.
As far as like the occult stuff goes, it was probably, I had always maintained an interest. Um, and I was reading mythology books and stuff as a kid constantly, of course. But everything that I could find then was from like a historical
Yeah.
standpoint,
Yeah.
Um, and I wasn't yet aware of things like witchcraft and stuff of that nature
Was there, like,
until,
when you were reading these books on mythology, was there any that really stood out at that time for you?
sure, yeah, I was really, really, really drawn to Thor.
Oh, so even from that early age.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
yeah, the Norse stuff really sang to me
Okay.
early on. And that's funny because it's funny to me that Thor is my gateway into the Norse, because Thor and I have a not good relationship.
Okay.
We are not friends.
Okay.
We're not
Okay.
enemies exactly,
So
but
we'll definitely get to that part of the story. Absolutely. Because I want to hear that.
yeah, yeah. Um, but yeah, I was really into the Norse stuff. And Marvel Comics helped with that a lot.
Hmm.
That was sort of my intro that steered me towards
Yeah. Yeah.
the Norse. Um, I mentioned this in an office hours literally last night. Um, um,
Oh,
that
it was the pop culture one, wasn't it?
sure
Yeah.
was, sure
Yeah.
was. Um, that, like, one of the things that stood out to me, um, in Marvel Comics in the '80s is that everybody in their little, talkie bubbles has the same font in the
Mhm.
'80s, except Thor. He's got this like old English, like stylized script.
Oh, okay.
And I always thought that was really interesting as a kid, because I was like, well, why does this guy get his own font? Like,
Right.
what does this do? And they mentioned him being like a god and all that stuff, and so that kind of led to some of that research. Um, I really liked the Egyptians growing up.
Mm.
I mean, I liked all of it. I was voracious, but like, again, this is the '80s and the early '90s, so like, even even from a historical standpoint, we didn't have great stuff, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then I think it was like I think I was a freshman in high school. So this is like 1995, 94.
Hmm.
Um, I I had taken at this point that I would just go to like small bookstores and look at stuff, and I started kept being drawn towards the new age stuff. And so finally, on a lark, I just picked up a book and I bought it, and that was Starhawk's Spiral Dance.
Oh, I like that book.
I do as well. In fact, it was the I just recently took an apprentice, and it was literally the first book that I sent them.
Okay.
Because I was like, this was the start of my journey. You should read this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. And it, like I read, and I read the Cunninghams, and I read literally the entire Llewellyn catalog at that time, and
Yeah.
anything I'd get my hands on. Like, it was to the point that, like, the owners of the bookstore that I went to knew me, and were just ordering books just for me.
Right.
Like, not knowing what they were. They were just like, here's another one from that guy that you like.
Yeah.
Great, thanks.
Yeah.
I eventually wound up working at that bookstore, for Christ's
Yeah.
sake. And it was about this time in 94, 95 when I met my coven. Started getting an interest in Wicca, things of that nature.
What do you mean you met your coven? Like, was it a coven, like an established coven, or
Yeah.
you met your? Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was an established coven complete with a Wiccan high priest and priestess.
Okay.
Like from like a Golden Dawn lineage. Like, it had a strong lineage all the way up.
Okay.
And this is stuff I didn't know at the time, of course. I just thought, hey, there's a bunch of these cool old witches and they want to hang out with me. Okay. Maybe I'll learn some stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I basically spent 4 years learning from them. And then in 1999, I got initiated as a priest of Wicca, which is too young.
So you would have been
18.
18. Okay. Yeah.
Too young.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't know. Like, the high priest really liked me, and really pushed for it really hard. And the high priestess kind of pushed back. She didn't really, because it was her belief that I was too young.
Yeah.
But I don't know. They just went with it, and my initiation was a shit show.
Why?
So,
like, without betraying coven secrets.
Of course not. Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually don't give a shit about coven secrets. But
lawsuit, hit stop. No, I'm just kidding.
Fuck your inner council.
Yeah.
So it's supposed to be during the initiation that the Great Horn One appears. That is not what happened. I got Odin instead.
Okay.
And my coven was what's the word? Fucking mad. They were none too pleased about this. So the whole initiation, technically, I'm an initiated priest of Wicca, but so,
well, I mean, who are you to decide? I mean, if Odin comes calling, what are you supposed to do? Be like, no, thank you. Like, can you please leave? Someone else. I'm expecting someone else.
Right. Yes. And no lie, that's what I did.
Oh, okay.
I told Odin no. I was like, like, you're not supposed to be here. I don't know what this is. Fuck off, kindly. But so that raised a lot of contention within the coven.
It's like, you gotta leave. My grinder hookup's gonna be here in like 5 minutes.
Yeah. That raised a lot of contention in the coven, and it was just further proof that, like, I was too young and whatever. And then once that happened, I started to see like we would travel to other areas of Wisconsin at the time, and work with other covens and things of that nature.
So
And
you
that's when
must have visited Circle Sanctuary at some point.
yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Um, but that's when I started seeing the cracks in the wall. I started seeing the power abuses and
Like what, like specifically in your coven or just in like the community in general?
in the community in general. My coven was pretty solid, honestly.
Okay.
All good people all around.
Yeah.
But yeah, within the community, I started seeing like old dudes taking young girls under their wing, grooming them.
Yeah.
You know the shit.
Yep.
Um, and it happens in occult circles all the time,
Yeah, of course it does.
and I hate it.
Mm.
And so once I started seeing that, I was like, well, this is some bullshit. Like, why isn't anybody fixing this? Why isn't this being addressed?
Mm.
And that's sort of when I walked away from Wicca, and I started doing like serious business research into um, Norse heathenry, Asatru, things of that nature. I still had not accepted Odin's calling,
Right.
mind you, but I was getting more interested in that side of things. And as I was getting interested in that and ingratiating myself into these various little heathen circles, this is like 2001, somewhere in
And,
that range.
and there's not a lot of at that time, there's not a lot of publications about
No,
heathenry. There's, like DJ Conway's Norse Magic, which was basically, 90s Wicca with
yeah.
Norse names. So I mean, that's not going to do any good. So with like, getting into the heathenry, was it a challenge or were there a couple of really good books out at that time?
So there were no books.
I didn't think so.
But the good thing is, so I had a couple of people online on like little IRC channels and things of
Mhm.
that nature, um, that would talk to me about stuff and sort of point me in the right direction. And that's when I found the Poetic Eddas.
The witch?
The Poetic Eddas,
Oh, okay.
which are, it's basically the Poetic Eddas and the Prose Eddas are basically the two big books for
Mhm.
Norse heathenry. There are some there's some other stuff that are considered classics, and things of that nature, but those are the two big ones.
Right.
And because I had always been a reader, and because I had done the Tolkien slog when I was in third grade, the medieval poetry of the Eddas was not that difficult for me.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's where I got all my education. Is I just basically just slogged my way through this shit. And so I'm interacting with Norse spaces and things of that nature and getting educated. And I go and I meet up with a small group of heathens in the backwoods of Wisconsin, and they are all the most racist, fascist motherfuckers walking the planet.
Well, that's what I was going to ask because back then I don't recall the way it is today, like where you think heathenry and you automatically go to white supremacy, fascists and whatnot. So
Right.
that's what I was going to ask you. At what point were you like, oh, there's this problematic element in heathenry, but you got that right at the beginning?
Yeah.
So how did you tap dance around that? Like, I mean, I would have been killed because
So
I would have walked in with my eyebrows and been like, "Hey boys," and they would have been like, "Oh, great, we have our sacrifice for tonight."
right. So the good thing is, parallel to all this other stuff, I'm going to shitty underground punk rock shows. I'm getting drunk at 16. And racism and fascism is a solved problem in punk rock, in that if you see a racist, you beat his ass. So they know that they are not welcome in those spaces.
Right.
They still try for some fucking, even now they still try, and I don't understand it. But I knew enough about fascist culture, mostly from interacting with the sharps. Do you know what a sharp is? Okay, I guess for the benefit of yourself and your listeners, sharps are skinheads.
Okay.
But they're like the really cool anti-fascist skinheads. They're like the opposite side of this,
right.
And they're actually the originators of the skinhead movement within punk rock.
Why are they called sharps?
It's an anagram for something that I can't think of off the top of my head right now. But the sharp, like, skinheads were around in the UK and on the East Coast and a little bit in the Midwest.
Right.
And then the whole thing got subverted by fucking Nazis.
Yeah, because wasn't like the skinhead movement, like, weren't they more like anarchists?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Very much so.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's punk rock.
Yeah.
But because it was an anarchist movement, it was easy to be co-opted by Nazis, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Which is, boy, for all of you anarchists listening, watch that shit. It's easy to take over your spaces. But because I had interacted with the sharps, I knew enough of the fascist talking points that I was able to, like, we're like, I'm at this heathen ritual and we're like halfway through it, and they're talking about like purity of race and all that so I'm just muttering under, like half-assing my way through this ritual, like trying desperately to not get my ass beat, because I'm this skinny goth punk rocker from the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin. And so yeah, like as soon as the ritual was done, I was like, all right, that was cool, peace, I'm out. And that wound up being double active, because at that point I just walked away. I walked away from heathenry, I walked away from witchcraft, I walked away from everything.
Well, that's quite the double whammy. I mean, you walk away from Wicca because you're seeing this predatory behavior, and you run right smack dab into white supremacists. It's kind of like for fuck's sakes, give me a break,
Right. And yeah, it was just like, I was like, okay, clearly something is wrong with this fucking system.
Yeah.
Everything around me is fucked. All this witchcraft bullshit they're just hiding predators and fascists and assholes.
Yeah.
And I don't want anything to do with it. And so, like, I went into the atheist salt mines, as I call it. And I spent a long time there. And it's not like I wasn't still reading, I was still keeping up on like occult and paranormal stuff.
Right.
I just wasn't treating it like a calling anymore.
And
I spent
interest.
Yeah. It was just like, oh, a book on cryptids, I guess I'll pick that up.
Yeah.
Because at this point, it's like 2004, something like that. And I don't know, I was reading at this point in my life, like right now, I read about 150 books a year. At the time, because I was distracted by extracurriculars, read women, drugs, and booze and punk rock, I was probably down to about 25. And I don't know, I enjoyed my time in atheism. Like I have a Christopher Hitchens tattoo on my arm. I am, I hope, never offensive by accident. Like I was even an anti-theist for a while.
Okay.
But like, can you blame me? Really?
Well, no. I mean, though, like I said, like you had like a double whammy there,
And like, I still respect and revere Christopher Hitchens for his mind and for his wit and for his ability to drink like a goddamn fish. But like, I'm not an atheist anymore.
Right.
And I look back now at a lot of the atheist heroes that I had in the aughts and the mid 2010s and stuff like that. And I look at them now and I'm like, the fuck? Because they're just as bad, a lot of them. Like,
oh, of course.
Dawkins, like Dawkins is off his fucking rocker and he's turned into a turf. Fucking Sam Harris is blatantly racist and against like Muslims. Like, it's just like, what the fuck? But I had such an extreme response to those two things that I went hard swing the other way, and I missed the cues that were happening on the atheist side.
Yeah.
Like a dumb, stupid kid, and then some shit happened. And I started dating someone who was training to be a Santeros
Okay.
priest. And we initially sort of we did not see eye to eye on their spiritual side, but we decided that we liked each other enough that we were just going to ignore it. And he went to Cuba and he came back and he was like, hey, I want to do a divination for you. And I was like, sure, fine. And he does this divination and he looks right at me and he goes, Odin wants to know why you haven't talked to him.
What form of divination was it?
Cowrie shells.
Okay.
And I was like, what do you mean Odin wants to know why I haven't talked to him? And he goes, I don't know if you're we'll just assume a lot of your listeners don't know. Without giving away the store here to our Santeros brothers and sisters, but the initiation into Vodun Santereo is hard. It's like a 7-day affair. Like they strip you of everything that you are. And apparently, because Odin couldn't reach me, he decided to go bother my partner when they were getting initiated. So my partner basically told Odin, okay, fine, I'll tell him. Now leave me alone and let me do this. And yeah, that was that. That was a couple of years ago. Now I'm back, baby.
So you
I know it was a big info dump there. Sorry.
No, that's why we're here. I mean, that's the whole point of this podcast. But so you have this divination done, and Odin's like, dog, where the fuck have you been? And you're like, okay, fine. So then what? Like, I mean, what's that process like to sort of because you went like you said, you went from a swinging pendulum from one side all the way to the other, and now you have to find your way back, but under like a more specific, I don't want to say system or tradition, something like that, but like it's like Odin's like, I'm a big part of your life, so how do you you know.
So so technically speaking, this is my third calling from Odin.
Right.
There was a second calling. I don't talk about it. It's nasty.
Okay.
There's literally one person walking the planet that knows about my second calling. So this is my third calling, and 3 is a very important number in Norse heathenry, and you don't tell the Allfather no 3 times.
Right.
So the next day, I went and I bought a bottle of mead, and I sat down, and I meditated, and I had a conversation with Odin. And basically, how I eventually wound up coming back is that we had to set strict terms on the deal. And this moment, that day of having that bottle of mead and sharing it with Odin, has shaped my practice going forward. We had very strict rules for how this deal was going to work. But the biggest one, the most important one, was that it gets a little weird a little later on, but at the time I would be responsible for actively trying to root out fascism and racism within Norse circles. And if I can deconvert anybody, awesome.
Right.
Like those are the big wins. And there's some other stuff, but the details of that pact are my own. But that's the big one. And it was a deal I could get behind. And so that's what I started doing. I started I had been away a long time, so I started gently digging into occult spaces and things of that nature, probing a little bit, just trying to get my feet under me, and then it was 2020 and everything went on fire.
What happened in 2020?
I know it's a lost year, right?
What?
But the George Floyd stuff happened, and there's protests everywhere, and then of course the fucking chuds are coming out to counter protest, and it's turning into this whole fucking thing. The restaurant that I had been working in closed in March thanks to COVID, and I found myself with an abundance of free time. So I hit the streets. I have 2 successful deconversions under my belt, of Proud Boys, specifically
Okay.
Proud Boys.
Okay.
One just walked away, and one joined our side.
Okay.
And I was very, very proud of both of those.
Yeah.
Because if I see somebody, here's the thing, it's such a prevalent problem within Norse circles that if I see somebody with a Mjolnir necklace, I'm immediately on edge.
Right.
I don't know anything about you. All I know is you're wearing that and you're a potential problem.
Yeah.
So those are the ones when I during the George Floyd protests, when I was on the streets, and if I would see somebody with a Mjolnir, those are the ones I would go talk to. And I was like, my frequent plan of attack was, have you actually read the Havamal? Because there's so much in the Havamal that it's runs counter to all this bullshit that these kids are doing, right?
Yeah.
I had a little pocket Havamal with me. Here. Look at that. This is the words of Odin. Pay attention. yeah, it was a thing. And it's sort of, for as much horseshit as 2020 was for so many people, 2020 really galvanized my path and what I want to do within it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, like, towards the end of the year, I was like, all right, I guess I'm actually in now. I guess I'm really, really, really in. And that's when once I decided that I was really in and started following people on Twitter, like, actively. Um, and then Gabby posted something about Hyro, and I joined Hyro, and now I'm a fucking rock star. So what do you want?
Yeah, yeah. So when when you made your pact with Odin, and so that was kind of fairly recently, like it was a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Um, so you're not like, see, I don't know a lot about heathenry. Like I mean the heathenry community.
Sure.
So I mean, you're doing your own thing. Like you had your conversation with Odin, you made your pact. Now you're doing your thing, like with Odin. Like your whole say magical spiritual process is basically you're working it out between you and Odin type thing. Like, or are are you part of like the larger heathenry community? Is there and I don't mean I don't not like a closed system like the Golden Dawn,
Hmm.
but are there is heathenry really solo, or
No, it is not.
okay, so like there's like groups, and I'm not talking about, again, let's put aside the white
Let's
supremacist.
assume we're talking about good heathens
Yeah,
from here
yeah.
on. Yes.
Like are there heathenry like organizations?
Yes.
Okay,
Quite a
okay,
few.
okay.
And the thing, they're yes, there are a lot. They're called kindreds, or there's a number of words for
Like
it.
are these organizations that have like training programs and whatnot?
Yes and no.
Okay.
It varies. The thing to look for any future people who are interested in Norse mythology is, at a baseline, any group that you are interested in working with must support Declaration 127.
Which is what?
It's basically an it
Like
is
what?
an
But not what is Declaration 127, but what does that come from? What is that?
it comes from the Havamal.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Okay.
but Declaration 127 is an active statement that anybody who was a member of the, I'm not even going to say their name, the fucking Focus, the badass, the bad fuckers.
Mhm.
Anybody who is an active member or acts in such a way is not welcome in this space. That's what Declaration 127 is. And it's been ratified by a number of groups and organizations and kindreds across the world, frankly.
And
Um,
this is from the Havamal?
it is adapted from the Havamal, yes.
Oh, okay. Because the Havamal is like that's
The
like
words of Odin.
yeah.
Uh,
So
it's called Declaration 127 because it's taken from stanza 127 of the Havamal.
okay, got it. Okay. So what a lot of these organizations are doing are taking like the words of the Havamal and writing like in clear English some
Yes.
okay, got
And
it.
it is a unified document. We have one document, and then everybody who agrees has signed it,
Okay.
basically. There's a
People
there were
and organizations.
people and organizations.
Okay. Okay.
Um, and they're working on an updated one that is not specifically directed at the bad people, but more is designed to be inclusive to everybody. Basically saying, we don't care about your race or your gender or your orientation, like your ability, like fucking whatever.
Mm,
You are welcome in this space, and anybody who says otherwise can eat a dick.
yeah. Well, I mean,
Um,
but that's just the modern world, number one. But number two,
yes,
yeah, how was it last year or the year before? Scientists discovered Vikings that were from the Middle East,
sure.
Vikings that had um, uh, European DNA
Hmm.
mixed with Middle Eastern DNA. Like this whole well, first of all, the whole concept of, you know, white Vikings, like that's a Nazi construct
Sure is.
anyways. But even if that wasn't a Nazi construct, even if that was just because Vikings came from Northern Europe, so they must all be white and whatnot. I mean, that's all gone. Like that's out the window. This purity and bloodlines thing is all bullshit. You have the
It's super
DNA
bullshit.
evidence to prove it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's super
The,
bullshit.
the misogyny is bullshit. You
Hmm.
know, um, you have female Viking warriors. Like the misogyny is bullshit. The women are, supposed to be in the kitchen popping out babies.
Yeah,
You know,
it's complete nonsense.
yeah.
Like this is the thing. Like in the prevalent wisdom is that the Vikings were out raping and pillaging, right?
Mhm.
Okay, maybe, yeah. Let's be honest, yes. But the Norse people were prodigious traders.
Yeah.
They were all up and down the Mediterranean, down the west coast of Africa. I mean, multiple Norse explorers came to the Americas, Greenland, Iceland. Everybody talks about Eric the Red, but there are plenty before him
Oh,
that
absolutely.
landed in North America.
We have here in Canada, in Newfoundland, Viking settlements that date back to, I think, as far back as the ninth century, I believe, you know, way before Eric the Red, way before Columbus,
Yeah,
obviously.
obviously.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like and it's important to remember that these were these were a seafaring trading people.
Hmm.
What everybody views them as these horned axe wielding fucking lunatics,
Yeah.
which okay, there was definitely a period where they are that, except for the horns. You never had horns on the helmets.
Right.
Um, but that was spurned because of Christianity coming in and trying to wipe them out.
Mhm.
Um, but before that, like, yeah, I mean, the Norse were all over Europe, all over the Middle East, North America, fucking. So, like, it's not this idea that there is genetic purity.
Yeah.
First off, is gross, and
Yeah.
second off, is wrong.
Yeah.
It's
I
just not.
would
It's not
love,
correct.
yeah, I would love to experience. I do have a past life as a Viking. I know that, but I would like to be able to experience um like a Viking that travels from Norway, from my little seaside fishing village of all, wooden buildings, making my way all the way to Paris um like medieval Paris with these stone cathedrals. Like it's such a different, two different ways of life.
Yeah.
To go from like the green in the mountains and that relative rural sort of lifestyle, and end up in Paris on a trading expedition. And it's got to be such an amazing like experience. It'd be like us nowadays traveling to another planet, another civilization,
Right. Yeah.
another planet. You know what I mean? That's more advanced to us. That would be the only real equivalent that us today could have.
Well, I mean,
Um,
it's like the 70s and 80s when they would like go into the Amazon rainforest and
Yeah,
you know.
but that's going back like backwards, like that's, I'm talking about like a
Yeah,
more simple
yes,
to that you know more civilized
quote unquote.
yeah the way we define civilized. It's just it's got to be an incredible experience for the Vikings of that time.
Like I wonder, I wonder how they felt the first time they landed in the Middle East, because at the time these are the most advanced cultures on the planet.
Yeah. Yeah.
The all of the Arabian Peninsula, like all that stuff, like these are people who have developed at this point calculus
Yeah.
and like high level mathematics, and like philosophy is booming.
Yeah.
um like
It must have been an extraordinary experience. I'm going to pause. I need to get some water for myself.
do it.
So just give me a minute. Okay, we're back. Break.
We have a every time I hear that recording in progress, we have a thing on Weird Moon Rising where we just go, thanks bitch.
Yeah. I don't know. That
That's her
just
name.
started.
Yeah, it's new.
Yeah, I don't really care for it. It kind of bothers me for some reason. I don't know why it bothers me, but it's like, I don't know. Like I know recording has started because guess what? I hit record.
There's two motherfuckers in this room.
Yeah. 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 So anyways, yeah. So I mean we were talking about um Vikings in the Middle Ages, and that's all fun and whatnot. But um I want to hear a little more about like modern heathenry, because again, it's something that I'm not really particularly familiar with. So I guess like one thing that because I was asking about like, are there, heathenry organizations, and or do they have like training programs and whatnot? And I kind of, my impression of the heathenry community is it's very like loose, like because it's not like a closed system.
Not at all.
You know what I mean? So I kind of like I'm a member of the Order of Bards, Ovates, and Druids, and
Yep.
it's you know it's the I mean there's different ways of approaching druidry. Like ADF is a druid church, so they have their liturgy and whatnot. But OBOD and the I'm sure the British Druid Order is very similar, where it's a little bit more, like it's a community, but it's a more of like a loose community. The Order of Bards, Ovates, and Druids, they have their training program for, you start out with Bard, then you move to Ovate, then you move to Druid.
Right.
But it's not like, okay, this is what Druids believe, this is what Druids are, this is what Druids do, these are Druid rituals, this is Druid magic. It's kind of like kind of like developing your own sort of spirituality. And that's the impression that I get with heathenry. Like it's very, it has that sort of self-inspiration, but within a Norse context, like
So you're not wrong. We don't have formal structure the way the Druidic orders do. Nor do we, for the most part, most Norse groups and practitioners don't put a big focus on a lot of the other aspects of magic. It's a very it's incredibly reconstructionist for the most part. Most heathens try and do things as close as possible to the old ways as they can.
Okay.
Which is difficult because nothing was written down.
Yeah.
And there's yeah, there's way less emphasis on magic and that aspect of
Mhm.
things. I'm weird for a heathen because I come from that Wiccan background, and now I've gone from very, very, very ceremonial to like wild chaos magic, making pacts with demons and shit.
Right.
Um, so I'm definitely a super outlier. So, but um, it's mostly based on learning as much as you can, and trying to live your life in a way that exemplifies your ideals
Mhm.
and exemplifies your personal hearth cult.
Yeah.
Um, Heathenry is very much magic of the mundane all the time. That's not to say that there aren't practitioners who are out there doing things like astral and casting spells and stuff like that.
Right.
But in general, I find that to be more the exception than the rule. You know?
Yeah. That's one thing, like with Druidry, like there's no Druidry spell books from Llewellyn. You know what I mean?
Right.
There
Right.
are like Wiccan spell books and whatnot. Um Philip Cargom, who was our last chosen chief, he stepped down. We have a new chosen chief. He did publish a book called Druidcraft, which kind of tried to blend witchcraft and druidry together. And I mean, witchcraft as a practice of magic as opposed to like a spiritual path.
Yeah.
I mean, they blend well because druidry is very, earthy well, again, just like with the Norse, like they didn't write anything down. So, piecing together druid authentic practices through folklore,
Right.
and of course having to wade through all of the Christian gloss that was added to a lot of the folklore. So that more witchcraft as opposed to it. Witchcraft lends itself well to druidry as opposed to like ceremonial magic.
Right.
Although with that being said, the Druid revival that started in the 18th century, like it developed along like the Masonic lines, the Masonic lodges. So uh John Michael Greer, I don't think he's the I don't even know what his title, chief head arch druid, I think, I don't know, of the ancient order of druids in America. Like they were like lodge style druidry. So
Okay.
I mean, you can certainly do.
What a title, Arch Druid.
I think
That's
I
great.
like it. I like it. Um uh so you certainly could do like that lodge style ceremonial druidry, absolutely. But I mean, like the Oba druidry and the BDO druidry, like the druidry that I think most people would be more familiar with, is it's very earthy. It's very, it's a real personal spirituality.
Yeah.
And so like this Druidcraft book where he tried to kind of create like a druid type magic. I mean, it's not like what you would think it is, like I said, like the like Wiccan spell books, whatnot. Like it
Right.
still was really nothing like that.
We have so in Norse heathenry, certainly in America, is a pretty young tradition.
Mhm.
Um, there there is evidence that it probably has kept up a little bit in like Iceland and Greenland and parts of Northern Europe. But in America, it's very young, like
Yeah.
50s, 60s, maybe.
Yeah.
Um, and for a lot of that time, infested by shitheads.
Right.
So it's, but I find that Norse heathenry and the druidic circles are very much kissing cousins because we're from they come from that same area of the world, both oral traditions. Most of our stuff is lost.
Yeah.
I'm of the belief right now that our two traditions should start working more together and talking more, because I think that we could learn a lot from each other.
Right. Yeah.
But I think both sides would push back on that.
I could see, yeah, no, absolutely. I can definitely see druids pushing back on that, just because there's so much white supremacy within heathenry that, like, I could see them kind of thinking, why give ourselves the headache of having to wade into that and deal with that, and and then the worry that these white supremacists
Could
slash
begin
heathens are going to be like,
infesting.
oh, you know what, we can get into this druidry thing and blah blah blah, and
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that I'm generally of the belief that we would view it the same way, in that we need to get our own house in order first and foremost. We have things like Declaration 127, we have Declaration of Deeds. Those of us who are not fucking focused are hyper vigilant about this shit. But that doesn't mean it isn't a problem, and it doesn't mean that we aren't cognizant of the fact that there are people that are claiming to be in our faith who are fucking with shit.
Yeah.
It's a whole damn thing.
Yeah.
It's why like, as I have within the last few months become more and more prominent and known as a heathen. And that carries with it that stigma, right? You have to constantly be aware of the fact that there are people who are going to initially hold you at arm's length until they know, even other heathens. Yeah. And I do that too, right? One thing that's been really helpful in the last couple of months is there are a pair of Norse heathens who are doing really, really, really great work on this. They're very popular on YouTube. Ocean Keltoy and Wolf the Red.
Okay.
And they have a Discord server, and it's awesome. And they have YouTube channels, and they're great.
I feel like Wolf the Red sounds familiar on Twitter.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
He's very active on Twitter.
Okay.
He's got big dad energy. He's great.
Okay.
And like, the Discord that they run is well handled. They have a very strict no fascists. If like you show a hint of fascism there, and like all of the admins show up and they're like, what are you doing? What's this about?
Right.
And then they start asking questions, and as soon as you show your ass, you're fucking out.
Yeah.
So it's been, I found that place to be pretty good for helping to build the community, and having a couple of decent figureheads at the top who give a shit has been very helpful.
Yeah.
That's not to say that that's like the only place, but it's a very, very good one for people who are very online.
Yeah. Oh God, this is going back to what, 2018, or was it 2019? No, it must have been it doesn't matter. I was asked to do a workshop at a convention. And like, yep, no problem. I mean, I love public speaking. I love doing workshops and lectures and stuff like that. So yeah, sure. Absolutely. And I get a message on, I think it was on Facebook, from one of the fellow presenters that was going to be at this convention. There's two neo-Nazis that had been invited
Yikes.
to do, presentations, and the organizers, oh, no, they're not, they're friends of ours, we know. It took me maybe 30 seconds, a Google search, to find out that, oh, yes, they are, and another 10 minutes to have, like, here's proof you can't deny,
Right.
the connections, and all these people, and oh, this one does a lot of work with Indian kids, Hindus, blah 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 blah. And of course, I have an interest. One of my interests is in Nazi occultism. I
Sure.
find well, and it interests me in two ways. Just how the complexities of paganism and occultism in the whole Nazi structure, how that all worked, number
Oh,
one,
because it's fucking bananas.
because it's fascinating. But number two, the neo-Nazi groups of today, are inspired by the Nazis.
Yeah.
So learn about the Nazis so you can better understand these modern groups. But you find, or else you don't get the nuances of Nazi ideology, where why were the Nazis so cozy with Hindus, and why were they traveling to Tibet and whatnot? Because they believed, that the root race from Atlantis, or in their terminology, Ultima Thule or Thule, however they pronounce it,
Yeah.
ended up in Tibet. And so the Tibetans and the Brahmins are actually practicing their lost Aryan traditions and blah blah blah.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the ruling class of Japanese, they obviously were Aryans because of their lighter skin, and they were so much more cultured than the rest of the Japanese and the Iranians. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
So because people think, oh, well, if you're Nazi, then you hate anyone that isn't white and you hate Jews. And it's not that simple.
It's not.
So when people are like, oh, he does all this work with Hindus. Yeah, well, guess what? So did the Nazis. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
that's not a show a picture of him standing beside a Hindu and be like, oh, he loves the world.
He's got a Hindu friend.
Yeah. What does that sound like? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And so so when you're kind of like researching these groups, and there's these code words, and oh, we're a workout club. We're just, it's always just, we're just a workout club. Or the Proud Boys, we're just a drinking club.
Yes.
With a patriotism problem. And so whenever I see these groups, and they're not racist, but there's not one person of color among them, and
Right.
they're just a workout club. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
And so it wasn't hard. So anyways, I mean, it wasn't hard to confirm, that these were genuine concerns on the part of this one presenter. Is like, oh my God, like, it wasn't, wearing a Molnor and her freaking out, blowing things out of
Well,
proportion. You know what I
and
mean?
the
So
thing
like
about this,
so they were genuine. And so, you know, the organizers, they were like, oh no, 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 they're friends, they're friends, they're friends. So then I'm finding photos of one of the organizers with their friends,
oh
with
no,
their friends in these workout clubs. And it's like, anyways, so a number of us ended up pulling out from the conference. And then some I'm not going to call them Antifa, because Antifa isn't an organization, but anti-fascist protesters were like, okay, we're going to protest this convention. So they shut down the convention. I'm like,
awesome.
that's what you get.
Yep.
That's what you get. You
You
know?
know, it's funny because there's, especially when it comes to like conventions like this, the organizers are always, oh god, 90% of the time they always fuck up in some way like this.
Mm.
And then when legitimate concerns are brought forward, they go, oh no, 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 they're our friends.
Yeah.
And you go, oh, you're friends with these people.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and
So, you know what? And you know that whole, well, no, no, no. I know because they're friends of mine. I'm like, well, I have a lot of friends. Some of my friends are assholes. So, you know, just because they're friends of mine doesn't mean they're great people.
right.
You
But
know?
there's a difference between I have friends who are assholes and I
Yeah.
have friends who are fascists.
No, I know.
You
I'm just
know?
saying, like, just like pulling out the, oh, no, 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 they're friends of mine card. I'm like, well, I have friends that are assholes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, if someone's like, oh, your friend's not a really good person, I'm like, yeah, I know. Like, I'm not, no, 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 they're a friend of mine. I'm like, no, I know they're an asshole.
I am frequently that friend who is an asshole.
Well,
I'm,
that's who I was talking about.
oh yeah, good.
No, just kidding. Yeah,
No, I accept this. It's fine.
So that whole scenario kind of prompted me, like, I should start, because, you know, like, one group leads to another, leads to another, leads to another, like, and you know, and I can't remember, I mean, this is going back a couple of years, but you know, this group also was affiliated with this group
Yeah.
that was started by this guy who started this group, and who's now in jail for bombing a black church, and you know what I mean. And so I was kind of like, I wonder if I should start just like researching these groups more, names, dates, and doing like fascist files. You know what I
You
mean?
know,
Like these are the people to watch out for. You know what I
what
mean?
I do, and what you're gonna wind up being is you're gonna be that classic meme picture from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia of Charlie Day looking at the sign and it's just pictures and lines and
That's lit, you know,
yeah.
that meme. It's funny that you say that, because that was literally me during this whole scenario. It was like look, like this picture, this, and I mean, like a patch on a jacket led to this whole rabbit hole of fascist organizations that had all of these association, and again, like, started by this guy who's a you know, known neo-Nazi who's in jail for bombing a black church. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I do.
and that meme was me. Like, I'm like, look, like, here it all is. And all of this information only took me 10 minutes to find.
You know, so there was a dear friend of mine, Brandon. Shout out Brandon. He's the best. Not Brendan, but Brandon. Yorm. He moved to Hawaii recently, and he put up the Satanic Church or the Satanic Temple version of the Pride flag for this month.
Okay.
Which, you know, bless, thank you. And I had to. I was like, hey, dude, like, like some of the people who lead the Satanic Temple are like racist turfs. And he was like, what? Well, what? Bro, I didn't know that. Show me some proof. And somebody else came in with like a big screen cap thread. And he was like, I hated to yuck his yum because he was, he was showing support, but it's like.
So you're talking about the Satanic Temple started by what's his name?
No, it is not related to LeVay.
No, not LeVay. That's the Church of Satan. The Satanic Temple that has the Baphomet statue with the children.
Correct.
Like the actual, you're talking about the actual Satanic Temple.
Yeah.
Like, and they have what in the leadership? There's racism.
His name is Lucian.
Lucian. That's it. Yes. That's it. Okay.
My roommate is one of the chapter heads here in Satanic Portland.
Okay.
And when all this stuff came out, Satanic Portland left TST.
So who in the Satanic Temple was doing all this? Like you said, racist and turf?
Yeah.
Who?
Lucian.
Oh.
Online? Yeah. There's screen caps. There's a lot of it was internal conversation, but
when did this all come out?
Like 2019, 2020.
How did I not hear any of this?
Because it didn't make press. It didn't make anything. It was kept internal for the most part. But it's a whole thing.
But nowadays for this to not even get out on Twitter or anything.
Look, if you want a hint at this, just it did get out on Twitter, but it just didn't raise a stink. But if you want a hint at this, they took the tits off Baphomet. If that doesn't tell you that there's something wrong, I don't know, man.
What do you mean they took the tits off Baphomet?
Baphomet traditionally has tits. They removed them.
They removed from the beginning?
No, recently.
Okay, because I was like,
and admittedly, this is not an area that I'm like super well versed in.
Yeah.
But like, come on, man. that is like that screams of like blatant transphobia to me.
Huh. I can't believe that I didn't even get a whiff of this.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Nobody did. Like it's the weirdest fucking thing.
I wonder if I'll be able to Google and find any of those screen caps.
Yeah, please do. I could. And the guy, my friend who put up the Satanic Temple pride flag, like deleted the thread, so I don't even have the link that was given. Because he was upset by it because he was trying to show support, and I was like, hey, can you support people who aren't turfs? That would be
I didn't know that.
Super awesome.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
And I felt bad, but what are you gonna do? You gotta like. This is the thing, is especially because I have this heathen background, it's vetting your sources is incredibly important. Mm-hmm. And you always feel like the asshole when you are like, I know that you mean well, but could you not?
Yeah. It's not hard to be not misogynistic. It's not hard to not be transphobic or homophobic. You know what I mean? Like it's not hard to not hate people. So just don't. Like, mind your business, and right. I'm gonna mind my business. You know what I mean? Just like all these politicians, especially the more conservative ones, that government needs to stay out of your business. Government needs to stay out of your business. But I'm going to tell you who you can love, who you can marry, what you can do with your body.
Right. Yes.
What you can believe, like religiously, you know what I mean? it's, you know, so you get that level of hypocrisy, which just drives me batty.
This is
Absolutely
this is a
batty.
big this is a big part of my practice is because okay, so you asked if there were organizations within heathenry, and in general, kind of yes, no, but a big part of heathenry is community,
Mhm.
of taking care of the people who are in your community and making sure that everybody is able to contribute in a way that they are capable of contributing, right?
Yeah.
Meaning it's not ableist, it's not homophobic, transphobic, fucking any other fucking piece of bullshit.
Yeah.
And so a big part of my practice is looking out for trans kids. And that's not just because I am non-binary.
Mhm.
It's because these are, when I look at the alphabet mafia, the trans kids are the ones who are getting hit the hardest right
Yeah.
now. And so I can speak well. I can formulate a really good argument. I don't give a shit if somebody tries to gay bash me or fucking, you know, bash me in any way, shape, or form. I don't give a fuck. I'll fight you back because
Yeah.
I've been in a bunch of scraps, right?
Yeah.
But that's not true of a lot of trans folks,
Yeah.
and they have incredibly high suicide rates. They have incredibly high homicide rates. My former partner, the one that gave me the divination, used to stand on the steps of the Madison courthouse every year. I think they probably still do. I don't know. Every year and read out the names of every single trans person who died in the last year on the
We do
Trans
that.
Day
We
of
do that
Remembrance.
here. Yeah, we do that here on Trans Remembrance Day.
Yeah, and it's incredibly important,
Yeah.
because people don't realize how big of a problem this is.
Yeah.
And like I'm aware of how I present. I present as this huge masculine bearded fucking. It doesn't diminish the fact that I'm non-binary, and it doesn't diminish the fact that I'm part of this community and I want to protect my fellow community members.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like, yeah, it's a big part of my practice. You know, I work actively with Odin and Loki. These are two like gender fluid fucking tricksters.
Yeah.
So like when I look at people, when I look at other heathens who are like trans people, ew, I'm like, you clearly don't understand this.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't get this.
Well, no, it's not necessarily a matter of not getting it. Look at Christians, like they completely skip the parts of the Bible that doesn't conform with their levels of hate.
I would argue that they
It's
don't get it.
it's inconvenient to them, so just ignore it. You know?
Look, most Christians haven't read the Bible.
Yeah.
And I don't. I wish I knew. If I wish I could remember whose quote this was, but like, the fastest way to become an atheist is to read the Bible. Like, and this is, I think, in heathenry, especially nowadays, it's picking up a lot more. Heathens are slowly picking up a lot of the rhetorical skills that, you know, the atheists have to combat Christianity and stuff.
Yeah.
And are starting to push back really hard on that stuff.
Right.
Ocean Keltoy is great at this. Like, I see him pick fights on Twitter, and I'm just like, oh, I better go get some fucking popcorn. But like, just it's a thing. Like, one of the things I'm so proud of the heathen community in the progress that we've made in the last 5 or 10 years is that it has become, yo, you want to work with the Norse gods? I don't give a shit. Come. I don't care who you are. I don't care how you identify. Like, just come play.
Right.
Be one of us.
Yeah.
You know, and we're starting to push these fucking fascists further and further to the outskirts. um the long table is big enough for everybody.
Yeah.
um
Do
if you're
any of these heathen organizations, like, when I was talking about like, oh, should I start researching these groups and, getting facts and names and dates and da 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 da, just so people are aware of these groups that are masquerading as pagan groups, da 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 da. But then I was like, oh, do I want to get killed? Nah.
No.
But do any of these heathen groups, kind of have that, you know, make stuff like that public? Like, these are the groups you need to be aware of. These are problematic groups. These are, white
Yes.
supremacist, fascist groups, and
Anybody affiliated with the AFA is a piece of shit.
right. But I mean, there's more than the AFA.
Sure. But generally speaking, like, and that's the Asatru Folk Association.
Yeah.
Fuck them. For those of you who don't know the anagram. But like, there's more than the AFA.
Folk
Yes.
Association or Assembly?
I think it is Assembly.
I think it's Assembly. Yeah.
They're just the AFA. They're fucking focused. Who gives a shit? But a lot of groups will affiliate themselves with the AFA.
Yeah.
And they might not even necessarily even understand. They might not even know.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with it, right?
Well, that's why I'm asking, like, do any of the heathen groups have, like, so you have something in the States, and I think it's a nonprofit organization that does something. I think it's called like Hate Watch, and it's, they have all the information and all, like, the hate groups and stuff like that, like something like that, but specifically within the heathen community for, those white supremacist, fascist groups,
not so much.
Mm.
Generally speaking, our metric is usually, do you support Declaration 127? If you're there, then now we can have frith. Now we can have a conversation.
Yeah.
And we'll see where it goes. If you don't, why not?
Yeah.
Are you just ignorant of this thing, or have you decided to actively ignore it? That's our baseline. We don't really keep a because we're all heathens are, in general, we tend to buck those sorts of systems.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, the fact that Declaration 127 was signed by as many groups and people as it has been, it is a frankly monumental thing. It's astounding. And then, if you go further and you've signed the Declaration of Deeds, well, now we know you're okay. We're more, have you done this affirming thing, rather than these people are assholes,
right?
Because it's so insidious within heathen circles.
Yeah.
And we are loath, I think, in general, and I'm not going to speak for every heathen here. I'm just going to speak for myself and my understanding of it. We are loath to look at an entire group and say, oh, fuck these guys.
Right.
Because there's probably going to be good kids in there. And there's going to be people who are interested in the Norse deities and want to have good conversations and good relationships with their gods, but they're just in the wrong regional location, or they've been misled in some way.
Well, yeah, and I mean, that's why I was asking that, because if there's like a hate watch type thing, so these particularly young people can make sure who they're getting in with.
We're also chronically way behind the times in technology. I'm not going to lie about that. Like, it's we're all just a bunch of anarchists.
Yeah.
Um, it's not a bad idea though, and it's something I can run up the
Well, I know it's not a
ladder.
bad idea. I came up with it, so clearly it has merit.
Oh
Uh,
God.
it that's a lot of work. And like I said, I don't really feel like getting killed. So I'll take care of it.
They're not going to cross country lines for you.
Yeah. Oh, please. This is Canada. Our biggest export is white supremacy. I know
It's true.
I know that comes as a shock to a lot of non-Canadians. Our biggest, like the founder of the Proud Boys is Canadian.
Yep.
Our biggest export is white supremacy. And
You
like back in the day, I don't know if about now, probably not so much, but back in the day when white supremacists in the States had to get out of Dodge, they came up, they had safe haven, in
right.
particular in the province of Alberta,
Yep.
which
Alberta's a problem.
Alberta would be like the Canadian equivalent of
Texas.
like Texas, Oklahoma, you know.
It's wet Texas.
Yeah. So no, our biggest export isn't softwood lumber. So enough with the fucking tariffs, US. It's white supremacy. So
Have you watched Letterkenny?
no.
You should.
No.
Because it is like the queerest show made by mostly cishets.
Right.
And hilariously so, like in like a loving, fun way. And B, they have an episode about Proud Boys coming to Letterkenny, and they're all just like, and they just show up and just beat a bunch of ass. It's awesome.
Yeah. No, I'm not much of a television watcher. I've so and not so much. I'm not big on. Well, I shouldn't say I'm not big on comedies, but if I'm actually going to sit and watch a television show, I'm more. It's going to be like some sort of drama show.
Sure.
So no, I haven't seen Letterkenny. One thing about what I learned about living in Texas, and I think this is a lot more. To me, it seems a lot more apparent now. You know, the age of Trump and post-Trump is on the right and on the left. The loudest voices are the extremists, the
Yep.
right-wing extremists, the left-wing extremists, and but because they're the loudest voices, it's easy to think they represent that their particular side. And I think it's fairly obvious to any normal thinking adult that they're not representative of that side as a whole. One thing I learned, so what I learned when I moved to Texas, everyone, a lot, especially my European friends and Australian friends and New Zealand friends in New Zealand. What are they called? New Zealanders? I don't know. Kiwis. They're all like, I don't understand how you can move to Texas. Oh, they're racist and homophobic and blah, 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 you know, because it's, you know, just Texas has that reputation.
Right.
What I learned is that, well, first of all, I lived in Houston, and Houston is pretty blue, but you know, you have obviously there's conservatives there. Real Republican conservatives, like the real ones, don't give a shit about you.
No.
They don't know you. They don't care about you because they don't know you. Like they're going to live their lives. You're going to live your life. You're not going to cross paths. So they don't care. And that's what I found true American, like Republican conservatism to be. And so like you're talking about Letterkenny and Proud Boys coming there, because from what I gather, the commercials, like the promoting Letterkenny, like they're like rednecks.
Yes.
Yeah. So here in Canada, it's pretty much the same thing for the most part. Like conservative rednecks, even like something like Proud Boys coming in, like, whoa, we're we're just like you, like we're bosom buddies. And real conservative rednecks are like, fuck off, like you're just problematic. Like
That's
you're just
literally the episode. Yeah.
yeah, you're just gonna cause us problems and we're not interested. But we still have that, you know, that real white, you know, far right supremacy. Like I said, like it's our biggest export. It really is. And you know, Canadians, you know, we have a moral superiority being next door neighbors to the US
Yeah,
because
you've earned it.
because well, you know, no. And last week really is a good reminder that we didn't earn it, because 215
Oh yeah, I heard about this.
babies, indigenous babies, were found in unmarked graves in a residential school. So yeah, we haven't earned it. But you know, so
Yeah.
but a lot of Canadians, and I feel this situation with the 215 babies is a turning point. I feel that in my bones, and I hope I'm right about it. But a lot of Canadians would hear me say something like white supremacy is our biggest export, because it is. And oh no, not us, not Canada, not that's the problem. That's
Yeah.
the problem, because we're not quote unquote as bad as America with our race problem, just because we didn't have the millions of black slaves. No, we were too busy killing indigenous kids.
Yeah, y'all did your first peoples bad. I mean, and it's not like America did any better. Let's
Yeah.
be honest. We fucked it up too.
Yeah.
But Canada fucked the first people bad.
So we have the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the
The
RCMP.
Mounties.
They're Mounties, which I guess would be the equivalent of the FBI, let's say.
Yeah, that's pretty
That's
accurate.
fair, because they're federal, the RCMP. So they're a federal national police force, like the FBI, although the RCMP is a little bit more policing than the FBI is.
Yeah.
Like there's some parts of Canada where they're the police. There's no like regional police type thing. Anyways, that's a close enough analogy, I would say.
Let's take a moment here.
Oh, yeah.
Pause. But I do want to talk about Mounties.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
while we were on the break, I
Yeah.
took the moment to do a little recall. I would say that the Mounties are probably more analogous to our federal marshals here.
Oh,
the FBI.
That would make sense. Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah. So the RCMP were basically created as a police force to deal with the indigenous, well, I'm going to say quote unquote, because some people will be listening to this, not watching me with my air quotes, the indigenous problem, or the Indian problem back in the day. You know, as white settlers, you know, expanded and they wanted this land, you know, that was native land.
Right.
So you have this police force to come in and kill the natives so white people can settle. Like that's, you know, that's our history. Just a couple of years ago, out in BC, the indigenous people there protesting a pipeline, and the RCMP
I remember that.
The RCMP had this was uncovered after this whole situation happened. It was reported on in national news that the RCMP basically gave just shoot to kill orders, just shoot them all, kill them all, which would never happen. White fishermen burning down buildings and attacking
Right.
indigenous fishermen in Nova Scotia, there was no shoot to kill orders with the white people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
Um, yeah. So no, we don't. Our moral superior, our position of moral superiority isn't well deserved. It is. You know what I mean? It's not justified.
That's a good point. Like, I guess it's
It's just because we don't have that history of slavery
right.
that you guys have, and we, once we pushed all the indigenous, and like in Ontario, in my province, there's a lot of these reserves that are so far north that you can only get to them, they're fly-in only, like you can't
Yep.
drive there. They're so isolated, so it's kind of like a out of sight out of mind situation. So, you know so it's easy to think, well, we don't have a racism problem like the US, because all of
Yeah,
the
they're all,
citizen
yeah,
populations are just gone, isolated, they're away, you know what I mean?
I do. In
Yeah.
fact, so I'm a huge professional wrestling fan.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and um, one of the things that I know about Canadian professional wrestling, I mean, obviously, other than Bret Hart and the Hart family, um, is that there is a small town in Nunavut that is only accessible like 3 months a year because that's when the ice is thick enough.
Hmm.
And they book independent professional wrestlers to come up there. And so they get a couple of trucks full of guys and then the ring, and they go up there and then they just set up for like a week and a half.
Right.
And everything's wildly expensive because everything's
Oh,
really expensive up there.
it's insane. Yeah, it's
Um,
insane.
but like these are people that are not getting forms of mainstream entertainment in any way, shape, or form for 10 months out of the year because it's not like they've got fucking cable. There's no broadcasting out there.
Yes, there
So,
is.
it's weak, right? Like they're not getting the full Canadian suite, let's say.
Yeah.
Um, and so they're certainly not getting a lot of live entertainment. That's for
No,
damn
no, 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 no.
sure. And so like the entire town shows up for these wrestling shows.
Yeah.
So there's like 4,000 or 5,000 people who are showing up every night for these independent wrestlers that nobody's ever heard of,
Yeah.
other than like one or two names that maybe are willing to take the trip to Canada, like a hacksaw Jim Duggan or something like that. And it really struck me as there's so much land between there and populated Canada that they
Yeah.
could move to, but because those are their ancestral homes, they're not moving. It's
Yeah.
just a way of their life, right?
Yeah. Now, none of it. So, a lot of these northern reserves, like these isolated northern reserves, they're not traditional land. Like,
Right.
like they were placed here. Again, it's that out of sight, out of mind.
But definitely reservations. Yeah.
Yeah, and up until I think it was the 50s, they couldn't leave the reserves without permission from the government.
Holy shit.
But none of it. So you have the Inuit people.
Yep.
And so, I mean, that's where they're from. That's where they've lived for thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years. So there's no reason for them to be like, oh, we have to abandon all of our cities and move south. Like that doesn't
Right.
make any sense.
That makes no sense. Yeah.
Yeah, but the challenge is that, yeah, like I follow some people that live in Nunavut and they'll take photos of food and the price stickers in their grocery stores.
Yeah.
And, things can be 5-10 times more expensive. And,
There,
I'm not, I'm not a
Cole
big,
Cabana tells me a story. He told a story on one of his podcasts that a single roll of toilet paper cost him $27 Canadian.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. It's ridiculous, and I'm not a fan of billionaires and billionaire multinational companies like Amazon, but I will give Amazon credit because I bought a bunch of school supplies for the high school in for a high school in Nunavut. Um, and I got like the same free shipping deal, like the normal spend $35
Awesome.
and it ships for free type thing. And so Amazon is really really good, you know, for places like that, because you can get, so someone posted a photo and it was like one notepad, a couple of pens, and a couple of pencils and some erasers, and she's like, this is what $50 of school supplies gets you up
Right.
here. So I spent like $120 and I like hundreds of pencils and backpacks, and I think I bought shoes and rulers and staplers and glue and you know what I mean, like just
Yeah.
like enough stuff for like a classroom, and it cost me $120 and I got free shipping through Amazon, you know.
You know, it's I've done this. I've actually done this for Nunavut as well.
Mm.
I didn't spend quite $120, but I definitely have done this. And I think that leftists tend to undervalue what a company like Amazon does for remote places.
Yeah.
And you say what you want about Bezos, he definitely is a piece of shit, but Amazon can get to those places that are so isolated.
But
and
just just pay your taxes and pay your employees
exactly
a living wage.
Right.
That's all. And then you, Bezos, if you want to buy 50 houses, buy 50 houses that are all worth 50 million each. I don't give a shit. Just pay your employees a living wage and pay your fucking taxes.
Yes,
That's all I'm asking for.
We are of one mind on this.
Yeah. I'm not like, oh, eat the rich. No one should be rich. I'm not saying that. Just pay your fucking taxes.
Right. I good God.
Oh, and keep sending me free shit, Amazon, because stuff shows up at my house from Amazon that I don't order. So keep doing that.
Really?
Yeah, keep doing that. I'm fine with that. So keep sending me free shit, pay your taxes, pay your employees a living wage.
So let's talk about occult shit again.
Yeah. Suck it, nice... Bezos.
Yeah, suck it, Bezos. Nobody likes you. Literally,
except for your new gold digger wife.
She doesn't like him. She's just in it for the money.
Yeah. She likes his massive engorged wallet.
Yes. Are you kidding me? There's no engorging there. There's just one black card. He doesn't even carry identification on him.
Yeah, right.
He's like, do you know who I am?
Yeah.
No.
He's like the Queen of England. He doesn't even need a passport.
Right, exactly. I wanted to talk a little bit about the podcast.
Yeah.
Just because I feel that it's really, really important to put over how important my co-hosts are to the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like Solaris does all the editing.
Well, first of all, let's start at the beginning. So
yeah,
you have a new podcast called Weird Moon Rising.
Absolutely.
And the first episode is launching on June 16th, correct?
Yes. Yeah, we want to be just before the summer solstice.
Right.
Yeah, our first episode on June 16th. We have some preseason episodes that are up, so you can get to know us, the various hosts. There's myself, Vincer, and Solaris.
Right.
And I handpicked this team. First off, I didn't want any cis people on the team.
Right.
not that I'm largely joking there. But I wanted to have people who understood a little bit of nuance, because I feel like if you are any flavor of non-binary or trans, like, you understand that there's fluidity in almost everything.
Yeah.
So that was a big thing. And then I specifically chose these two people because they both follow paths that are wildly different than myself. Vincer is a hedge witch, primarily. So she focuses on the in-between spaces, liminal spaces between life and death, which is awesome. And then Solaris is like a demonologer and a death worker,
right,
primarily.
We should say all three of you are hosts on Hyro as well.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
And we're not affiliated with Hyro, but we're not affiliated with Hyro.
Yeah.
You know, like, we are not a promotional vehicle for Hyro.
Yeah.
But we are proud of the fact that we are affiliated with Hyro. So we're going to talk about it sometimes and deal with that. But like, yeah, we just have a variety of voices, and Solaris does all the editing, and Vin's going to do some graphics for us at some point, I think. Like, we all do stuff. I'm the one that's out talking to people and doing the promotion and podcasts like this fucking useless piece of shit. I'm kidding.
Yeah. So with your podcast, like, when you get into like the full episodes, is it just going to be you as host?
No. It's like, we're gonna be the three of us discussing things, and we're like, our first episode is on the Wyrd, WYRD. That's a Norse thing. It has to do with fate and spiderwebs and shit like that.
Yep.
And then we've got another episode about cultural appropriation that's coming up. That's going to be our second episode. And then we also have interviews that are happening. And some episodes are going to be just, the three of us bullshitting about a topic. Some episodes are going to be just an interview, and some episodes will be a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Based upon whatever we're feeling, right? But like, I'm the primary host, but that's not to say that I'm going to be taking lead on every interview.
Right.
Because sometimes, if Vin wants to bring somebody in, well, then that's her interview. And I'll be happy to sit in the background and be a chucklehead.
Yeah.
We've got a pretty good flow between the three of us. Like, we bounce back and forth. And that's kind of the way we like it. We're also funny as shit. I get so many comments on our preseason episodes that we've released, like mini episodes that we've released, but they're very, very funny. So if you want your occultism with a side of fucking around, we're pretty much the place.
Perfect.
Not that I'm just here to promote my podcast.
No, but you are here just to promote your podcast.
I wanted to sit down and have a conversation with you.
Yeah, but when I approach people to be on my podcast, I tell them all the same thing. Like, the whole idea about my podcast is, it's not an interview. Like, I'm not hard-hitting question answer. It's really talking about your life from, that first seminal moment to today, basically. And I also say, and promoting whatever service or products, because as a home-based business, I mean, I have the benefit. I have 3 really great distributors that buy my products from me and sell to stores. So they do like there's like a little over 400 stores where you can buy my products.
It's awesome.
I wouldn't have been able to go out and get 400 stores on my own. You know what I mean? So they do, that sort of heavy lifting. So I have that benefit, but I know how valuable it is to be able to be out there and visible and talk about my products, because I'm not going to spend $5,000 on a television commercial
Right. Yeah.
here in Thunder Bay. And that would just be a waste of money, because that there's one store here in Thunder Bay, one occult store in Thunder Bay and they sell my products. But so, traditional advertising doesn't work for us occultists.
No, not at all.
And you're not going to produce a commercial to promote your podcast, so you are here to promote your podcast. Like, that's why you're here.
Wow. I mean, I am and I'm not, I'm I have wanted to spend time with you. Because I think you're a lovely human being.
I'm amazing. We've already established this. Like, I'm such an incredible person.
A little insufferable, but fine.
More than a little insufferable. Like, I mean, I've met myself. Like, I'm acquainted with myself.
Dude, I have the same problem. Like, I look in the mirror and I go, God damn, I'm awesome. So I get it. I understand that particular problem.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, it's I wanted to come on because I wanted to have a conversation and have the whole thing, and yes, promote the podcast, but that's not the whole point.
Yeah.
Right. And I really wanted to put over my co-hosts because they're fucking awesome. I wouldn't be able to do this without them.
Yeah.
Like, I'm funny, but I need somebody to bounce off of,
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just the way it is.
Yeah. As a drag queen, a big part of drag is
I did not know you were a drag queen.
What, really?
Yeah, really.
Oh, okay. Surprise.
Tell me about her.
Well, I will in a second. But so a big part of drag is comedy. It's not just getting up there and lip syncing to a song and getting off stage. And I'm fucking funny, but I'm not a comedian. Like, I can't sit down and write jokes. Like, I'm only funny, having that interaction with someone or with an audience. Like, I can't. Like, I'd be sitting down trying to write a joke like a comedian. I'd be like, knock, knock, who's there? Well, who the fuck do you think is here? Like, you knew I was coming over. Open up the fucking door.
Yeah.
Like, that's my knock, knock.
Yeah.
Like, ha ha ha. You know what I mean? Like, why did the chicken cross the road? Why? Well, who the fuck cares? It's a chicken. Well, that's as close as I'm gonna get to writing a joke. I can't do it. I'm not a comedian. So I need that other person.
Yeah.
To be funny, or else I'm just like, I just sound like a dick. Well, not even like a dick. Like, that would even be good. I just sound like an ass, like a boring, dumb ass.
The word you're looking for is drawl.
Yeah. No, yeah. Like, I couldn't go somewhere and do like, like comedy clubs do like amateur nights. Like, I couldn't do that.
Sure.
Like,
open mics.
Yeah, open mics. I can't sit and write jokes. I'd have to get up there and start talking with the audience, and hopefully, they're receptive enough, and to have that.
See, I've done open mics, and they're miserable. There is a miserable fucking experience.
Yeah.
Until you get that one joke that kills.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, all
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
But like what you're talking about is crowd work.
Yeah.
And crowd work is hard on an open mic because when you show up to an open mic, everybody is initially immediately like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Impress
and
me.
that's different at a drag show, because at a drag show,
People want to be there.
Well, people want to be there, but people want you to acknowledge them.
Yeah.
You know, and when you're lip syncing, they want you, like, if you look at them and point to them, as if you're the person they're singing about, like, that's what they want.
Yeah.
When you're on the mic talking and you want to be funny, and you know, you get the audience involved, like, that's what they want, you know, so they're all in. And one thing, like, I started doing drag when I was 19, and one thing about it, which is, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, is friggin' fantastic, is people treat you like you're the superstar, like,
yes.
Madonna, who, you know, Beyonce, what is Beyonce like an ice cream flavor? Because I've never but Lady Gaga,
That'd be
that's
tasty.
Lady Gaga's like a soother for a baby, like, you know what I mean? Like, there's no other celebrity that exists except for you, you know.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. So yeah, they're all in. They're all in, and you can make fun of them, and they just want more. You know,
So
like, the joke could be on them, and they just humiliate
absolutely.
me even more, you know.
So this is, you get a scoop here, Sean.
Okay.
No one knows this.
Okay.
I have a drag persona.
Oh yeah.
I've performed.
Oh.
No one knows who I am, and I will not talk about her, but I have one.
Okay.
So I totally understand this.
You're like, okay,
this gimmick.
I've done 8, 9, 10, 9. I don't know how many interviews I've done now. And out of all of them but one, they've all like, oh, you pulled this out of me that I've never said this before, type thing, you know.
I'm not willing, like, it's just like, so like I said earlier that I'm a huge professional wrestling fan.
Yeah.
Professional wrestling and drag are the exact same art form.
Oh, 100%. And drag can be just as physical.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Absolutely. I've taken bumps in drag. Good God.
Performance is performance. It doesn't matter if you're on stage, on a movie set, in a wrestling ring, in heels. Performing is performing. It's all the same. It's all performance art. It's all the same. It's the same type of personalities.
Yeah.
You know,
be loud,
those big,
bombastic.
you know, those big 6.5 foot tall, 300-pound men wrestlers are every bit of diva as a drag queen. You know this. You know,
absolutely.
We know this. My drag name is Lady Ecstasy.
Oh.
Yeah. I'm I enjoy it. When I was younger, you know, it was like, it was never, you know, some drag queens are like, this has got to be my career. Like, I want to be doing drag, you know, 4 or 5 nights a week. That,
no.
It's just a lot of work. I mean, it's hours of getting ready. But some drag queens, like, that's what they want to do. And this is like pre RuPaul's Drag Race.
Yeah.
That's just, for me, I was young, it was fun, blah 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 blah. As a older adults, we got the group back together because we're all professionals. We all have our professional life, like our careers. But no, well, it's still fun. Like we're doing it for fun, but we're taking it a lot more seriously because we understand that like people are spending their hard-earned cash to
Yeah,
come to your show. So put on a damn good show.
absolutely.
So we definitely take it a lot more seriously now. But because we're all professionals and we all have our careers, it's not like like let's make some money. Um, we do it like 1 year we donated something like 10,000 or $12,000 to our local pride organization,
Awesome.
from collecting money at the door. We do food drive where instead of a cover charge, you bring non-perishable food and we donate it to a local food pantry. So it's raising money, it's fundraising.
Yeah.
There's a memorial scholarship fund that every year we do a like a silent auction and a drag show and stuff like that. So like as adults with careers, it's our motivation for doing drag is different. It's doing, for the community and, being able to do some fundraising and still have some fun. You know what I mean?
I
Because
do. I do.
because it's a good time. I mean, it's fun performing. I like performing. Like I like public speaking. I like doing workshops and lectures. You know what I mean? So I do like, having eyes on me. You know.
It was like 2018. This is back when I was still living in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And the Proud Boys were like threatening. We knew they were coming to Milwaukee, and they were threatening a drag queen story hour.
Okay.
And this was happening in River West. And for those of you who are listening to this and know me, you know River West. But for those of you who don't, River West is a tiny community. It's about 10 blocks wide, maybe a mile and a half long. And it is filled with punk rockers, drug addicts, beatniks, and the most anti-fascist motherfuckers walking the planet.
Okay.
So we were having this drag queen story hour in River West, and we heard the Proud Boys were going to be in Milwaukee. And so we organized, and there was just a wall of the biggest punk rockers protecting this drag queen story hour. Well, this beautiful queen is telling children's stories to kids. And I was like, this is the whole point.
Yeah.
Like this is beautiful.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
raised a bunch of money for charity. Like just doing the work. Like that's the whole point, right?
Yeah.
Anytime you can take something that's fun and enjoyable and transgressive, because drag is inherently transgressive, and raise money for something good.
Yeah.
Like and like bless. That's the best thing in the world.
Well, but that's all that matters is doing good and helping people. Like what else is there in life?
I don't know.
You help people that need help. You do your best to do good things, to do good works, and you help heal, and that's life. That's what you do.
That's the core of heathenry too.
Yeah.
Is looking out for your community and looking out for the people who need a little help.
Yeah.
And saying, you know what, I'm gonna show up. I'm gonna be that guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I sincerely wish that more of the people who followed the Norse faith understood that and got it. And we're getting there slowly but surely. But yeah, it's the whole damn thing.
Yeah. But
thing.
Be patient with your heathen brothers and sisters, because I don't think it's comes from a lack of desire to help and do good things.
No, not at all.
I think, to be honest, I think a big problem with the magical community and the pagan community, witchcraft community, like the occult, the occult community, just I'm just gonna lump it
Yeah,
all together,
sure.
is because we're kind of like we're in a Christian world rediscovering paganism. You know, these aren't big monolith groups and religions and whatnot. You know, so these are living room practices. You know, our temple is in our living room type of thing. I think that so much of this is pushed indoors, in, you know, whatever spare space we have, that you know, it amazes me the amount of witches and Wiccans that are like, oh, I didn't realize it was the full moon. Well, how do you, like, do you not look outside? You know, I you know, for all the talk of, you know, nature religion and one with nature and da 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 da, there's not a lot of that in practice, because these are like living room or bedroom, these have become living room or bedroom practices. And you can't just, well, I mean, you could go to your local park and draw down the moon or assume a god form or whatever, but people are gonna think that you're weird. And in some parts of, you know, especially in the States, like in certain parts of the States, that's probably not the smartest thing for a witch to do. um you know, so
Definitely not.
yeah, um there's not a lot of magic in the field, so to speak,
Yeah.
you know. So the idea, and you know, and especially since BLM and all, you know, you see this all over social media. Oh, witchcraft is all about resistance, blah blah blah, it always has been, it always will be, blah blah blah. Great, but there's more to that than just retweeting BLM hashtags. Like, you actually need to go out and do something.
Okay. Well, hang on. I agree with you. But sometimes, especially when we were dealing with COVID, some people couldn't get out.
No, like, no. I I reference BLM because when BLM happened, you know, occult Twitter was tripping over each other to be
Yeah. Yeah.
the most BLM ally. You know what I mean?
Right. Yes.
Um, but but even like pre-COVID, like you still have to go out, like go out and you do
You
magic
got to do
outside,
something.
you know, like magic on the fly, magic in the field. um David Salisbury,
Sure.
his witchcraft activism book, so brilliant, because he's not only a practicing witch, but he's really experienced with organizing and activism. So he blends magic and activism together really well in his book, and it's such a brilliant book, such a brilliant book. I think everyone should pick up his book, Witchcraft Activism,
Yeah.
because it really, because a lot of people can be like, well, I'm really not sure how to put the two together effectively, which is that's fine,
Yeah.
that's understandable. So pick up this book. It's great because he's done it. You know, it's written with experience.
You know, I talk and I preach about the magic of the mundane a lot.
Mm,
Which is literally, again, going back to the first book I picked up was Starhawk Spiral Dance.
right.
Um, the idea that every action you take is potentially magic, And my practice has taken it to its furthest logical extreme. So everything I do is magic all the time.
Right.
So when I go to the streets, when I go on a protest, or I go to Pride, or fucking go to the sex club, whatever it is done with intention.
Yeah.
And there's always an aspect of magic in every action I take.
Yeah.
I don't keep an altar. I don't cast spells like witches do.
Yeah.
I don't do any of that. I have accoutrement, I have things that I carry that are charged and do stuff, which I'm not wearing any of them because I'm on camera. And like, that's a part of my practice, but it's not even a little bit the important part. The important part is what I do in my life.
Yeah.
And I think that anybody who's listening to this, if you're going to take any, fuck the promotion of Weirdcast and all that stuff. If you're going to take anything from this podcast and anything from anything I say today, make your intention and your life your magic. You don't need the spells. What you need is to be the best version of yourself and try and help other people to be the best version of themselves.
Yeah.
Because in doing so, you are putting more magic into the world than you could possibly know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Pause?
Oh, yeah, sure.
I also want to say that if the ritual and the accoutrement are the things that work for you, please do them. Use it.
Absolutely.
Like, my path is not your path. And how I do magic is not certainly not representational of anybody else.
Yeah.
I like my apprentice Viv, who is just the coolest. Like, I'm trying to teach them the magic of the mundane and get there. But if at any point Viv decides that they don't want to do that and they want to keep doing the ceremonial stuff and the ritualistic stuff, great.
Yeah.
What I would ultimately, the point is for them to understand how to do this thing. And if they decide that's not working for them, then whatever, fine.
Yeah.
And that's the deal, right? Like, some people are casual practitioners. Some people are magic is in every aspect of their life practitioners, and then there's a wide spectrum in between, right? And whatever works for somebody works for them.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to poo-poo it either way.
But you can't. I mean, no one can poo-poo someone else's practice just because it's. I mean, I know people do, but but I mean, why waste the energy though?
Yeah.
On criticizing someone's practice just because it's not the same as yours. I mean, but the thing is, I'm too busy doing the work to really worry about what you're doing in yours. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do indeed.
Yeah.
There are times where I'll get pissy at somebody about something, but it's usually because they've told somebody else that their shit isn't valid.
Yeah.
And then it's like, all right, well, I'm not punching down anymore. Fuck this guy.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's different. No, you know, definitely, those people, call them out. That's for sure. But don't be that guy.
Right. Yeah. Don't be that guy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, now I do take exception to, someone that's like, I don't know. I want to think of something like really ridiculous that I've seen.
Have you seen the guy that's on Twitter right now who's like, magic is inherent. I think he's a Solomonic order person. He's like, magic is inherently patriarchal and women shouldn't be doing magic.
Ugh.
And he's getting into the Twitter feeds of like a bunch of like female bodied people. And every single one of them, like from Viv to Aura to whoever, they are all just fucking dunking on this guy.
Mhm.
It's the funniest thing in the world.
I mean, it's like, but it's stupidity like that that deserves to get called out. Like
Absolutely.
that doesn't even make any sense, you know. That like that that just doesn't even make any sense. Like there's not even you can't even, you know, even give any sort of rhetoric that could remotely sound like that has any basis in reality. You know, like that's just, you know, like the best talker couldn't make that sound logical.
Well, I could, but I
No,
wouldn't.
you couldn't. That's just it's just too ridiculous.
Try me.
Mm-mm.
Um, but that's okay. You have a fair point though, in that unless it has some basis in reality, it's never going to sound convincing,
Yeah,
no matter how good you are. So
yeah,
you are not wrong.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, those people are fine to call out. You know, you can spend energy on, you know, idiocy like that, but you know, to purposely go out of your way to criticize and try to devalue someone else's practice just because it's different from yours makes absolutely no sense to me. But I mean, I'm also talking as a gay man who's a drag queen and a pagan. Like
Right.
I don't fit in so many boxes of you know, normal accepted society that I can hardly in turn treat other people like that, you know.
Yeah. No,
And
and I've spoken about this many times in higher office hours. In that, generally speaking, I find that queer folk understand um, the shit they should be stepping in and the shit they shouldn't,
yeah,
as opposed to cishet folk.
yeah.
And that's not to
Although
denigrate cishet folk.
with that being said, you kind of have to throw in the white mask for mask homos
Yes,
in with it
yes,
again,
yes,
because
yes.
they're just problematic and they've never done anything good for the community anyway. So, you know, we will just throw them in with the cis hats. So,
Here's the bus. Get under it.
yeah,
Um, I don't disagree though, by the way.
yeah.
Um, it's oh man, I don't really want to get into gay politics here. But it's there's especially amongst the trans community, there's definitely a feeling um like the gays have left us behind.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely. I mean,
yeah,
but the thing is that you also have to understand, you know, the history of the LGBT community, because this it's not an organic community,
not at all.
because I have less in common with a lesbian than I do with a straight woman,
Yes,
you know. The LGBT community was created by the greater cishet community.
right.
And so we, you know, gay men, lesbians, bisexuals, transgender, intersex, like they were all shoved into one box of depravity.
We're basically a pigeon.
And like, just you're now in this box, just go over here, like, just
Right.
be away from us. So on the one hand, there is that solidarity where we need to stick together, of course, but on the other hand is, like, are we really a unified community? Because just like, we're a community. Well, first of all, and I mean, the thing too is that a trans person can be gay, lesbian, or straight, or bi,
Right.
or poly, you know what I mean? Where you have gay, lesbian, bi, which are sexual orientations, and then you have trans, which is like gender identity, and those are two separate things, but they were still shoved together in that one box of depravity by the larger community. So
Box of depravity.
I think we've been a community for so long that, yes, we need to stick together and look out for one another, for sure, absolutely. But on the other hand, are we naturally a unified group? I I don't I
It's
question that.
yeah, it's tough.
Like, I have transgender friends that have, like, fully transitioned and have remained in the LGBT community, even though they're, like, say, male to female. So as a female, they would classify themselves as straight, but they're still part
Yes.
of the LGBT community. I have trans friends that, and again, let's say, like, male to female. So while they were growing up thinking that they were gay men, and then, they discover they're transgendered, they go through, they fully transition. So they're now a female, a straight female, and they completely leave the LGBT community and they live their lives as a straight woman.
Right.
So you can't even talk about transgender people as one unified monolithic
Well,
group.
and especially because, and I think this is really, really important, because you're talking about complete transitions, which is not a thing that is real. Let's just put that out there. I understand that you're using it as a shorthand, but like,
I'm not sure what you mean by that's not a real thing. Like, I'm talking about, like, a male to female who gets top surgery and bottom surgery.
sure.
So that they fully transitioned. That's an
And
actual thing.
that's, yeah, and I knew what you were getting at. I'm not trying to denigrate you
No, I
pick
just
on you
don't
at all.
understand what you mean. Like, you saying that's not a real thing.
Well, because they're gonna be on HRT probably the rest of their lives, regardless.
Yeah, but that's not.
So
But fully transition is when they have top and bottom surgery. Like, but now,
I'm not an expert on this, admittedly, as
okay,
a non-binary, so
yeah,
I'm not gonna push it
yeah.
further. But
No,
like,
but like, transgender people, like, when they have their top and bottom surgery, they call themselves, like, they I don't want to say classify, they describe themselves as fully transitioned. You know what I
some
mean?
do, yes.
No, well, some do. I'm just talking about the ones that have fully transitioned. You know what I mean?
I do.
Yeah. So, they can, like I said, some stay within the community, some don't. So, so it's hard to it's not an easy unified community, because we're all different.
And this brings me to the point of when we go back to talking about fascists and heathenry, in that there's this one piece of the group that can be easily sliced off,
Mm,
and everybody else goes, oh, okay. And so that's why I focus so much of my energy on the trans side of things, because it is easy for TERFs and gender criticals and things of that nature to try and separate the T from the LGBT. And I don't disagree with the fact that we are constructed artificially as a community. I fully agree with that.
Yeah.
But like, it's the thing that sticks with me is that even though that is true, you know, pride and all of these things were founded by, a lot of it was founded by you know, Black trans women.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And so it's like, when I see, I guess what I'm saying is, when I see that, like, the gays and lesbians have gotten the stuff that they wanted and are like abandoning our trans fellows, all I feel is disappointment.
Yeah.
Because, you know, everybody should be like, until we're all there,
None of us
are, because they're just going to keep sectioning us off.
Absolutely.
And dividing us.
Absolutely. And I mean, we've been a community for so long that we need to stay a community. Like, we can't start, you know, slicing off bits and pieces of the community. I mean, bottom line, like, all the weirdos and all the others are my community. I don't care what you are. You know what I mean? You're my community. It's just
it's hard to relate.
Yeah, you know, like, pride obviously was co-opted by primarily white gay men, you know.
Right. Yeah.
So it's no surprise that as you know, that white gay men are fighting for their rights, as opposed to, I mean, it's sounding like community rights, but really at the end of the day, not really, you know. And by co-opting pride,
they've othered the others.
Yeah. And I mean, this community loves othering others. Loves it. Absolutely loves it. You know, so it's definitely a challenge. You know, it really is.
It's a thing. And I feel like, so we've seen, what is it, 20, 21 states that are now pushing anti-transgender bills, some that have passed. And we saw this in the 80s and 90s, when people were really, when the conservatives were really pushing hard against gay rights.
Yeah.
So I feel like the trans community is finally having its moment.
Yeah.
Even though it's going to be hard. This is a tower moment for us. And it just feels so fucking miserable for so many of us. You know, I look at all my trans friends, and they're miserable about this shit, because like, it's going to be illegal for them to be them. They're doing genital checks on kids. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And I know that the vast majority of the alphabet mafia is with us.
Yeah.
But it's the ones that have abandoned us that I'm just like, those ones hurt the most.
Yeah.
You know, like, you got yours and you're the fuck out.
Yeah.
Right, fuck you.
And again, just like in politics, those ones, you know, they're the more extreme in the community. They're the ones that have the loudest voices.
Right.
you know. um so it just makes the work even that much harder. Like when you have gay men and lesbians that are anti-trans, they get the most attention. They get more attention than cishet turfs,
Yeah,
you know, because
absolutely.
it's almost like it's really validating um that trans people aren't real or aren't legitimate, because if even the gay community isn't accepting them, um then why should the broader community? And
Right. And it gets weaponized against us.
exactly, you know, exactly.
And fuck, there are even trans people who are like the trans shouldn't be part of the LGBT community. Like look at Buck Angel. Like what a piece of shit Buck Angel is. Like ugh.
Look at Caitlyn Jenner in an interview, because now she wants to
Ugh.
be governor of California, and she doesn't think trans kids should is a thing.
Right.
I'm like,
And
I'm sorry, not everyone can wait until they're 70 years old like you to transition,
right.
you know?
Yes. And this is the distinction. Uh I love that you did not misgender Caitlyn, because
Well,
a lot of people would do that.
but like why would I call her something that she's not?
Exactly.
Just because I don't like her position on trans kids doesn't mean I'm gonna start calling her Bruce and him. You know, like
Exactly.
that's just pathetic. That doesn't help.
It helps nobody.
No, like that doesn't help my position on um trans rights.
Right.
You know, I'm doing more work for the turfs if I'm gonna misgender Caitlyn just because I don't like her politics, and
Right.
just because I don't like her position on trans kids. There's worse things I can say about her because of her shit politics. You know what I
Absolutely.
mean?
I
Uh,
do. But I definitely saw like takes from the left when she started running for governor, that were like misgendering her and dead naming her. And I was like, what the
I know,
fuck?
I know, and like it's not gonna do anyone any. The only people that's benefiting are the turfs.
Right.
That the only people that's benefiting are the politicians that are passing anti-trans laws, because they're seeing everyone in the LGBT community misgendering her,
And
and
thinking it's
then,
okay.
yeah, yeah, because
Yeah.
the LGBT community is doing it. They're delegitimizing trans people, so these laws are valid.
Right.
You know, Caitlyn's a woman. Caitlyn's always been a woman. Caitlyn was born a woman.
She's
I
a
know
shit
this.
woman.
She's just a shit woman,
Yeah.
you know? Like,
Yeah.
you know, um, yeah, I'm not going to invalidate her gender.
It's but I mean that's one of it gets so weird when you start getting into the gender stuff. And I get it, especially for the cis, like you don't understand it, especially like looking at me like, yo, I'm non-binary, look at me, I have a huge beard, i I was born a
I mean,
male.
we need to be more tolerant of people that don't get it, people that don't live in our world. There are people that grow up in very, very isolated
Absolutely.
communities, that where this is not a topic of conversation, it's not a normal thing, it's hard for them to grasp. um
And we didn't even have the language for things like non-binary until 5 or 10 years ago, really,
yeah,
honestly.
yeah. You know, when someone accidentally, um you know, I see a lot of people on Twitter, if you misgender me, that's your one and only chance. But if someone doesn't know you, they're not going to know that you're non-binary
Right.
by looking at you. You guys don't the government doesn't hold you down and tattoo non-binary on your forehead. You know what I mean? Like it, a stranger, you're presenting, like what anyone would think is a traditional woman: hair, makeup, dress, breasts, da 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 da. A stranger isn't going to, oh, well, they're obviously non-binary. Now, people make the argument, well, you should just not use any sort of gender pronouns, and period. If that's a valid point, that's fine. So let's take gendered pronouns away completely. They're now like, let's not make them part of our language. That's fine. But again, there's people that didn't grow up in our world, and they don't quite get what that means. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? We have to be more patient with like the people that genuinely don't understand, but and need to be educated. I'm not talking about just the ignorant people that just don't give a shit and push back just for the sake of pushing back, or because they're hateful people. Like, they can go to hell.
Yeah,
But
fuck them.
the people that don't live in our world, that grew up in like a town population 300 in the middle of nowhere, um and they're 65 years old, they don't get it, and that's okay that they don't get it.
Yeah.
So instead of attacking them and making giving them the impression that everyone who they're supposed to respect are actually assholes because no one's speaking to them on Twitter nicely.
Exactly. Yes.
Be nice, educate them, move on.
So two things. One, briefly, you misgendered me in the pre conversation, and I didn't say shit about it. And
I
that's
probably
fine.
did, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's fine
Yeah,
because I knew that you were not doing it maliciously,
yeah,
so I just let it be.
yeah.
Right. The other thing, so I was in a Discord server recently, and somebody asked a genuine question about gender identity and stuff. And I was like, it's like 3 a.m. I'm literally the only like pseudo trans person there. And I'm like, okay, I will have this conversation with you because I feel like it has been entered in good faith.
Yeah.
Like, you're just asking, and you're not like devil's advocating. Like, you just want to know some stuff.
Yeah.
And so I'm talking to this kid, and I'm like walking him through, like the bits. And then people started getting involved. And I was like, well, we're off the track now.
Yeah.
So I got mad. I was like, I was clearly doing, like, this is a rhetorical, like, I'm doing Socrates here. Like,
yeah.
chill out.
Yeah.
And I eventually went into a DM with the kid, and we had a conversation about it, and he seemed to understand, I think, at the end.
Yeah.
But like, I had a bunch of people who were mad at me because I pulled them into a DM, even though they hadn't read back in the conversation, and they were all cis.
Yeah.
And I was like, you don't get to be mad about me.
Yeah.
Like, you don't get to be mad about this. Like, fuck off.
No, I know.
And like, just because there are a lot of people who don't understand.
Yeah.
And hopefully, you would hope that when people ask those questions, and I know that trans people are so tired of answering these questions, that's fine.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
I have the patience for it. I will happily engage these people.
Yeah.
And for my trans fam, and if you don't have the spoons to do that, fair enough.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. But like, if somebody enters the conversation in good faith, I'm going to engage them. I want to have that conversation.
Absolutely. Because that's the person that you want to engage with and get them to understand, so they're on our side. And if you attack them, how dare you ask that question? You're transphobic for asking that question, they're going to become hostile to trans people.
And I get,
Or how dare you ask that question? You're homophobic for asking what gay men are like.
right.
Well, he's going to become hostile, and he's going to become homophobic because he's going to think every gay man is going to attack him anytime he asks a genuine question, So I think people, but again, social media is not, I'm sure Mark Zuckerberg, another rich guy that needs
to pay his taxes.
After paying his taxes, then he could die. We'll bury him side by side with Jeff Bezos. I'm sure Zucky, Data's little brother, generally thought he was going to create a website for great conversation.
Have you seen the social network? Do you understand Facebook was designed to rate women on their hotness originally?
Oh, okay. No.
Oh no, it's still bad. It's so bad.
But anyways, like I'm sure a lot of these social media sites started out with good intentions. Like this is going to be a great place where people can communicate and converse, But you can't have intelligent conversations on like
it's hard.
Any subject and any time of day, any question, nothing. You're gonna just get dicks, and they just come in and just spoil everything.
So when I really
hold on. I need to pause recording.
Cool. I'll take a poll.
There we go. And we're back. Yay.
So I just want to say real quick, because I know we're running along here.
Great, I like the long ones.
Cool. When I started like really seriously questioning my gender a couple of years ago, what I did quietly is I started following like prominent trans people on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of listening and commenting a little bit, but trying not to interject myself too much. And I made a lot of friends that way.
Yeah.
Because they were like, oh, here's this weird beardy dude who's like engaging with us in a nice way, I guess. We'll like, yeah, okay. And then like when my egg finally cracked and I realized when I figured out that I was non-binary, they were all like, yay.
Yeah. It's funny because I can't, to me, it's weird to say, like, for me to identify myself as a man, just because I mean, I'm not really like Queenie, but I'm a drag queen. I'm more femme than I am masculine, but I consider myself male, like a guy. Like I'm not non-binary. I wouldn't even put myself on like a sliding scale of, well, I'm a little bit non-binary. No, like I mean, like
and that's the weird fucking part about it, right?
The drag queen is just a perform. I was just gonna say a performance persona, which she is, but that character, air quotes, is also like a part of me.
Yeah.
A part of my personality. So they're not 100% separated, but just because I'm femme and a drag queen, I'm not non-binary. I'm a guy,
Right.
I'm not a dude. I'm not a man, but I'm not, I wouldn't even, like I said, like a sliding scale, I wouldn't even put myself down the line a little bit.
It's look, and okay. being non-binary is fucking weird, especially as a mask presenting assigned male at birth,
Yeah.
non-binary. Like when I tell people I'm non-binary, they fucking do not sell this. They're like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
And AMAB non-binaries are fucking invisible. Like in the trans population, in the non-binary population, we are looked at as really.
You're the
You sure you're
bisexual.
not faking this? Yeah, we are.
You're the bisexuals of gender identity.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. You're not
That's
really bi. You just haven't quite figured it out yet.
you're having a phase.
Yeah.
You're experimenting.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. 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 So that's a whole ass thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm about ready to wrap this up. Let's get my shit out of the way here that I was planning on hitting.
Yeah, for sure. So, okay. So, where can everyone that's listening find you? You're on Twitter.
Yep. I am at Wade Odinson.
Perfect. And Weird Moon Rising podcast. Tell the listeners again where they can get it.
Currently we're on Spotify and SoundCloud, and hopefully within by June 16th we should be on Apple and Google Podcasts.
Perfect. And Weird Moon Rising podcast is also on Twitter. The handle is at Weirdcast.
Yeah, WYRD.
Yeah, WYRD Weirdcast.
Yeah.
And that's all going to be in the show notes, so everyone can go into the show notes and find your podcast and follow your podcast and yourself on Twitter as well. So
there's a couple other things.
Yeah.
On Hyro soon. We haven't quite nailed it down.
Okay.
But I'm going to be doing monthly ticketed courses on the runes.
Oh, well, that's exciting.
And I think that'll be really fun. We'll probably do one rune a month, maybe two.
Okay.
So that we can really dive into the rune poems and the meaning and how you can use them in magic and divination.
How many runes are there?
That is a question for many scholars. I use the Elder Futhark.
Right.
So mine are 24 to 26, depending on who you ask.
So I would think you'd want to do more like 2 or 3 runes a month.
Well, I would like it to be a year-long course is the idea.
Yeah.
So two a month is about where I would want to be.
Yeah.
But it sort of depends on I haven't really like laid out course structure too much yet.
Right.
I'd like to keep those classes to about an hour.
Yeah.
There may or may not be homework. We'll see.
Yeah.
Obviously this is I'm contractually obligated to say that this is for entertainment purposes only. But yeah, if you want to learn the runes, and I know a lot of people want to learn the runes, that we're going to be doing that through Hyro. And I think it's going to be done in such a way that you don't have to be a Hyro member to take these classes.
Oh, okay.
But you should be a Hyro member, because then
you absolutely should be a Hyro member. I just can't believe how much goes on the events on Hyro, daily events, so much going on. It's so worth signing up for.
I'm there almost every Friday night.
Yeah.
Hosting office hours. So if you thought I was funny or interesting and you want to interact with me, come to Hyro. It's gonna be awesome.
Absolutely.
I'm also it's great.
Yeah.
I've met lifelong friends there. I met my bond brother there. Like it's wonderful. I met you there,
Yeah.
for Christ's sake.
Yeah.
And that was worth the price of admission alone.
Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm also working on a book.
Oh, I totally forgot to ask you about that because I've only seen you reference that once, and that was just like 2 days ago, maybe in
I'm,
a
I'm
really small tweet.
yeah, I've been
So
kind of quiet about it.
yeah. So how far along are you on the book?
At this point, I'm about 5,500 words.
Okay.
I do
Okay.
about I do about 500 words a day.
Okay.
I'm trying to keep it slow and steady, but I don't expect this to be a long book. It's probably going to be like a folio,
Okay.
maybe 100 pages,
Okay.
because the book is on the weird,
Yeah.
WYRD,
Yeah.
and there is very little writing about it. Once you understand the weird is easy.
Hmm.
The bibliography is going to be the hard part, because there's very little historical pre-written stuff about the weird.
Right.
It's
Right.
just a thing that you kind of piece together as you learn the Nordic stuff.
Hmm.
Um, I know that there are some books that have been written recently that use the weird and talk about the weird in ways, and I'm going to check those out pretty soon and see if they're usable for the bibliography or for my
I
own
have a
reference.
couple of I have a couple of books from written by Brian Bates. And one is written like, oh, I need to pause. Hold on. I need to
Heard
find this book. Okay, I found it. I thought I was gonna have to stop and then just tell you that I'm like, I'll find it later. I thought I was gonna have to go. I had to um create a library catalog on my computer because, well, it got to the point where I was buying books that I already owned, and I didn't know what section of my library I had this book in. So I'm like, I can't see the book. I'm gonna have to go into my library catalog to find it. The Way of Weird by Brian Bates.
I am
So,
familiar.
okay, have you read it?
No.
Okay. So, sent on a mission deep into the forests of pagan Anglo-Saxon England, Wat Brand, a Christian scribe,
Because it's fiction, right?
what?
It's fiction, right?
It's fiction.
Yeah.
Suddenly finds his vision of the world turned upside down. The familiar English countryside is not what it seems. Threatening spirits, birds of omen, and plants of power lurk in this landscape of fallen terrors and mysterious forces. With Wolf, a sorcerer and mystic, as his guide, Brand is instructed in the magical lore of plants, runes, fate, and the life force until he finally journeys to the spirit world on a quest to encounter the true nature of his own soul. So what's great about this book is it's in that, don't shake your head like that if you haven't read the book. But basically, this book, he wrote it in the tradition of occult books, of putting like teachings in a fiction format.
Okay. Fair enough.
Just like Aleister Crowley did, Gerald Gardner, Dion Fortune. And it's really good. It's very shamanistic.
Ah,
And anyways, yeah. So I just thought I'd just
I might check it out. We'll see.
yeah. Yeah. And I mean it's a good story, like just for entertainment purposes. Like if you're looking for like a just like a book of on a fiction, it's a good read, but it's basically like, you know, a knowledge teaching couched in fiction.
I don't hate that idea. And I,
Like
in
us,
fact,
like us occultists like to do. I mean, you read
yeah,
like Dion Fortune's her novels, and it's like you can put together an entire workable magical system. Because that's what she did. She took her magic and she wrote it out in fiction format.
right.
Yeah.
And I have no problems with that as a thing. In
Yeah.
fact, I think it's very clever.
Yeah.
And you know, we both come from oral traditions, so
Yeah.
teaching things through stories is uh you know,
Yeah.
it's part of
And
the gig, right?
yeah, and that was part of the appeal for me, just because that resonates with my druid soul. Yeah. So good for you on the book. That's exciting.
Well, I will see if it ever actually comes to fruition or if I die on the vine.
Yeah.
The bibliography is going to be the hard part. But I mean, worst case scenario, maybe I just don't have one and just rely on name value, which I don't really want to do. Yeah, it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing.
Yeah.
Because there's like what I would like is I would like to have something out there for people who are interested in investigating the weird.
Hmm.
That is like a starting point.
Yeah.
You know, something that is concise and to the point and explains why the thing is the thing.
Yeah.
You know, the play is the thing, right? Um, but it's hard. It's hard. It's a hard concept, and
Yeah.
it's an obscure one.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you.
Yeah,
It'll come together. Come together.
I believe in me.
Yeah. There you go. We all believe in you. We all
I
believe
know.
in you.
I know. I know. I'm the best.
Absolutely. Second best after me.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah. All right, my friend. So thank you for coming on my little podcast. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, Sean, thank you for taking time out of your day, and thank you for having me on.
Oh, absolutely. I'm having so much fun doing this podcast. I love it.
I think we had
Love
a
it.
really fun conversation. I didn't even realize that we were 3.5 hours in.
We're,
Like
we're, we're pushing 4 hours
we're
in a
pushing 4. I don't want to talk
yeah.
about it, but like you're a hoot to talk to. So yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. So again, for the listeners and the viewers, all of that information um is in the show notes about the podcast, the Weird Moon Rising podcast, and where to find you on Twitter, your Twitter handle, and all that. So everyone could go into the show notes and check that out. And thank you for listening to this episode of the Lux Files, and I'll see you guys later. Peace out, bitch.